have 4 out of 5 members present. Keith LaBelle is absent tonight. Before we begin, I do have something I need to read. So pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency and signed into law on June 16th, 2021, this meeting will be conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. All right, so we are going to begin our agenda with audience sharing. We do have some audience members today. And so if you would like to share at this time, if you could just raise your virtual hand and we can promote you to speak. All right, I'll give just a few more seconds in case people are looking for that little hand to raise. All right, it seems like we don't have anyone interested in participating right now. So we're going to move into our next agenda item. So we have new business, which brings us to our school improvement plans. Tonight, we get to hear from Principal Carb at the middle school. We're really excited to hear you, Michelle, tonight. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So just say a few comments. So last month you heard from our elementary principals and they shared their updated school improvement plan, and much like our elementary schools, our school improvement plans will now be 3-year plans. Michelle has worked very hard to partner with the elementary principals, but also Algonquin Regional High School in authoring the plan that she'll be sharing this evening. And I just would like to compliment Michelle on the process that she used to develop this plan. Developing it during a pandemic wasn't ideal, but Michelle did an excellent job getting key input from our faculty, staff, and key stakeholders. So I'm excited to have Michelle present this evening.
Thank you, Greg. Would you make me the co-host so I can share my screen?
All set.
Thank you. Can people see that? Whoops, that.
Yes. Can you just press present, Michelle?
Yes, I sure will.
Excellent. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, so I know Greg mentioned this at the very beginning, but I just thought it was worth repeating. And I have blown up the district logo over here because I really felt like the school improvement planning process this last time was the most collaborative effort that I've been a part of within this district. And it just felt just very powerful. So all of the schools worked really hard on these together, and we started with the end in mind, which is obviously the strategic plan, Vision 2026. And as Greg mentioned, the elementary and middle schools between Northborough and Southborough met together several times. The middle schools and the high school met together several times, and then all schools met together several times. And then other NASA members, central office, district administrators met with us as well to offer feedback. And it really felt like with all of this collaboration and then bringing it to the school council, and offering our staff several opportunities to think about the district strategic plan and how we could move the work forward at the school level based on the feedback I was bringing to them from the district level. It felt like a very collaborative and thoughtful process. And I think we were able to hear from everybody and make some pretty immediate progress based on the feedback of people at the school level. So it was a really rewarding process, and I want to thank the district administrators as well as all of the building level administrators. So I won't read this to everybody. We've all seen this many times, but I still think it's important for us to always start with the end goal in mind. And if we are a pre-K to 12 district, we really have to think about what do we want in our graduates. And when we think about this and we plan backwards, I think we are much more likely to help our students and prepare them for what's to come when they graduate. I know Alana reviewed this last week with everybody, so I won't read it to you, but this time around, again, along with being a very collaborative process in developing school improvement plans for all the buildings, there's a lot of alignment horizontally and vertically, and we have allowed for many opportunities for data-driven discussions, and I think the goals were achieved. Again, I know Alana reviewed this last week as well, but I just wanted to share the visual about the components of the school improvement plans. And then I will get into our school improvement plan. We have 5 goals in our plan, and obviously, again, starting with the end in mind and looking at the strategic plan and thinking about how at the building levels we could make the strategic plan come to life and move the work forward. So we focused on 4 of the 5 strategic objectives in Vision 2026. So our first 2 goals are connected to empowering learners. Our third goal is connected to equity of opportunity. Our 4th goal is connected to healthy and balanced learners. And our 5th goal is connected to educator learning and leadership. And as I go through these goals, you will see that 3 of them are almost identical to the goals that were presented by the elementary schools last month, and that is intentional. If you looked at Trotier's school improvement plan and Algonquin's, the same would be true. So I think that's really important to keep referencing, is that we are all moving towards the same goals. So our first goal is to increase the integration of the DLCS power standards into our existing curriculum. And so there's sort of 2 parts here, is to really develop an understanding of the DLCS standards and to inventory sort of where they're already in place in our existing curriculum and maybe where they're not. And then to really think about meaningful, high quality digital literacy and computer science curriculum and instruction, and how we're going to sort of fill in those gaps for our students. These are just a couple of excerpts from the DLCS standards, which come right from this website here. So what you heard from the elementary principals last month is similar to what is expected of our students. So the DLCS practices, there are 7 practices, and this is K through 12. Those don't change, but sort of how you help students with them, that is the part that changes. And the goal for middle school students is obviously to have them doing more advanced kinds of things, but the standards remain very similar, K through 12. So Julie Doyle has been very helpful in beginning this work, and I know she's been working for years with several of our tech department members at really unpacking these standards. And now it's our turn at the building level to really unpack them and to dive in and to see exactly what it is that we need to do to move forward. This is just a screenshot of a slide that of a presentation that Julie shared with all of the administrators, which was extremely helpful. One of the things that really stood out to me, this is a graphic from the presentation she shared, is that students in computer science classes right now at the high school level, it's about 2% of students. But the jobs that we're preparing our students for, about 60% of those jobs are going to require these kinds of skills. So our job as a district and as a school is to close this gap a bit. So we definitely have some work to do here. This other graphic here shows the strands that are embedded in the DLCS. And I believe the elementary principals referenced these last month as well, but you will see no matter what the grade span is, these are the 4 strands. We build upon them as kids progress throughout their school years. This graphic up here in the right-hand corner, for 3 out of our 5 goals, we actually have in-house teacher-led committees to push this work forward. This is something that came directly from our teachers last year when we were talking about how to really tackle some of these things and how to really improve. And we have our instructional tech specialist, Megan Popolo, will be leading this work, and teachers will volunteer to serve on this committee. We have a lot of excitement here. We really need to see where we are already addressing standards, where we need more work, and where we may need to do some things a little bit differently. So some of these photos are just students doing various things with technology. These students are in an engineering class. They're working on some design for a project that they're doing. These students are collaborating on some writing. This student is working with Betty on research, and these students are after school in one of our clubs. So we certainly have technology, and what we're doing with it will be examined closely so that we can see how we can hopefully close this gap and really prepare our kids for jobs that don't even exist yet. Our second goal is to collaborate across disciplines to ensure consistent implementation of high quality instruction. And I think, that's always the goal of educators, but I think things have really changed a lot in the last few years. And I think at the district level, embedded in Vision 2026 is a very similar goal. And we have been working at the district level. The NASA team has been working on a shared definition about high quality instruction. And it's important that we do this at the school level as well. And we make adjustments to our practice. And I think, again, our ultimate goal is how do we prepare our kids to be this when they leave us? And that really takes place in the classroom, really helping students. So we need to develop some common language and some common skills and instructional practices that are consistent throughout the school and throughout the district. These are just some images to sort of support that. One of the things that we've been working on here and we need to do more of is really working on student engagement. What exactly are the students doing? What is the task the students are doing? And to get high engagement, we believe strongly that students need to have choices. So choices about how they do the work, choices about what kind of work they do, choices about resources that they're going to use. And we also understand that we need to continue to analyze data to inform our practice. So this is just a screenshot of some MCAS data, and this is just a screenshot of some Canvas data. It's grades from a teacher. One of the things that is critical is observing teachers and their practice. And I will say that Megan Kelty, who is our district ELA coordinator, she's been a wonderful resource to talk about ELA for one thing, but instructional practices globally. She and I have been in classes together and we're able to talk about what we see. So that has been a really nice resource to help move this work forward. These are some students who are working on an interactive lab. It's a hands-on lab, but they're doing some data collection. These students are working on writing their own music and playing it in music class. These students are doing a small group presentation and they're presenting to a small group as well. We know teacher collaboration is critical, and these students are actually working in a group. So we really believe that students need choice in sort of whether they work in groups or individually or pairs, but also kind of how they're able to learn and how they're able to kind of show what they know. So we're trying to focus on student choice and student voice to increase engagement. Our third goal is, again, either identical or very similar to the elementary school's goal, and it's to foster culturally responsive and inclusive classroom communities and school environments that provide equal access to learning for all students. And we know that as a district, we have work to do here, and certainly as a school, we do as well. So I would like to invite you, after I read the prompt, to read these 5 statements by 5 different students here at Millikan. So here's the prompt. Have you ever felt like an outsider? Can you share a bit about that experience? And Lauren, can you give me a thumbs up when you're done? So that prompt was the application to ask students if they who wanted to participate in our ADL World of Difference peer leadership program. Those were 5 of the responses that we received. So we received 33 responses from students, and all of those students are on their way to becoming peer leaders. Not all of them had ever experienced being an outsider, but most of them have. And those 5 examples that I gave are just examples, and I think they're representative of more of our students than we sometimes think. So the message to us was that we really need to empower our students, and we need to give them a voice. They have a lot to say, and they are capable of making change. And in fact, when change happens, it will happen from this group of kids and this age group. So we have been working with Rhoda Webb over the last year and a half or so to bring the ADL's World of Difference program to Melican, Trotter, and Algonquin. And so we started the second day of school sharing information with all students, and then asking students who wanted to apply to help make Melican a better place, a more inclusive place, a less biased place to apply. And we, like I said, we got 33 students. So this is open to 7th and 8th graders. And we have met with them twice. There are 2 advisors, Lonnie Soder and Gretchen Bean. And I have attended both of the meetings just as they're getting started. They will be going through some training during the school day that is put on by the Anti-Defamation League. And the goal is for this group of 33 students to get into 6th grade classes to start, and then hopefully 7th and 8th grade classes this year as well, as we're getting going, to really lead discussions on prejudice and bias and inclusion. And the kids are really excited. They had another meeting last week. It was not with the ADL yet. It was with their one of our guidance counselors here, Lauren O'Neill. Listening to them and the changes that they want to make to this world is so powerful. It's just a remarkable group of students. And these are students who some of them are from marginalized populations. Some students are on IEP, some students are EL students, some students are, very popular students. So you try to get a cross section of students in these kinds of groups. That is the recommendation from the ADL, but that is the group of students who applied. It's just a wonderful group. So along with this, our staff had 3 hours of training from the ADL this past Monday on our professional development day. It was anti-bias training, and it was a wonderful experience. It was a very interactive experience. So that was very powerful as well. So we are excited to see what our students are going to do this year. Along with that, we also had somebody from the Safe Schools Initiative come to provide training for our staff on LGBTQ plus population, so that our staff is empowered and educated and better able to support that particular group of students as well. We recognize that we have a lot of learning to do, and that the students often can help us with some of this. We do have an LGBTQ plus club at school. We have for 7 years. And this is just a clip of a video that the group made for National Coming Out Day this year that they shared in Canvas with their peers. And the group is active. They lead the National Day of Silence every year. And they are active in our school. And it's a wonderful group of students that adds a lot to our school. This is just an image here of a bulletin board outside of our science classrooms, and something that the science teachers have been doing in recent years is really highlighting different kinds of scientists. And they do an exercise where they ask students to draw a scientist. And many of them draw the stereotypical white man in a white coat with gray hair. And of course, most of our science teachers are females. and they're able to have a conversation about what scientists really look like. And so they're trying to really highlight that, spotlight that, and help students see themselves in science. So we know from our work last year that continues into this year, and I know the elementary principals mentioned this as well, that students need to see representations of those who are not like them in their curriculum, but they also need to see themselves in the curriculum. So we are auditing our units of study, auditing some of the books that we read to try to make them more inclusive. This is just a project that a student did. Our first days back to school this fall, we had a welcome walk, and every student was able to take part in this with signs trying to welcome everybody. So again, we know we have a lot of work to do here. We're excited about this work, and this is another one of our goals that has a teacher-led committee leading this work. So our 2 advisors for our World of Difference program are leading this work, which is really exciting. Our 4th goal is healthy and balanced learners. And I know that our my elementary colleagues presented about this, developing and implementing a coherent and systematic approach to social and emotional learning within and across schools. So again, we know we have a lot of work to do here. This slide just shows a couple of images. I know last month, CASEL was mentioned, the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And this is a little excerpt from the CASEL website. And this is a framework that we will be learning about. So the image is here. In 2 weeks, our SEL coordinator, Jennifer Lipton O'Connor, will be doing some professional development with our staff so that we can sort of understand this and what it means, and so that we can think about how we're going to implement the CASEL competencies across curriculum areas and across all school settings. I also included just this little clip from the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey. Milliken and Trotter and Algonquin participate in this, and it's given every 2 years to students. We were supposed to have administered it last fall, but because of COVID, we put it out. The Health Foundation put it out a year. So this is an anonymous survey. It's voluntary. It's very informative, and a lot of the questions come from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. So there are questions about bullying, about healthy relationships, about having a trusted adult, about alcohol, about all sorts of things, about mental health, suicidality, all of these things that are crucial. And what we know about surveys like this is students are as honest and as accurate as adults are when they take voluntary anonymous surveys. So the information that we glean from this survey is always really helpful in terms of shaping our programming for students and helping us think about how we can better support our students in the area of social and emotional learning. We also understand, of course, that the physical part of students' lives is extremely important and goes together with mental health. So we have a lot of different kinds of activities that we offer for students, and we also recognize that we have an opportunity to do more here. So we know that for some students, the hour before school and or the hour after school is more important than what happens during the school day. We know that opportunities for students to connect with their peers and with trusted adults is really, really crucial. So we have added to some of our after school programming and before school programming. This year we added soccer to our interscholastic school sports, which was wonderful. Our season's just wrapped up. We added a health teacher this year. This was the first time we have had a standalone health class. This is a picture of students doing a mindfulness activity in health class. And this is a picture of a student presenting in health class. So that's new for us and it's exciting. And we know we have to work on developing that curriculum. This is cross-country runners competing against Trotter and some other schools. We also added brain break into our schedule right after lunch a few years ago, and we recognized the need to keep this. So after students finish lunch, they can go outside, they can hang out with friends or read or run around or do whatever they need to. Data from teachers has indicated that since we implemented this several years ago, students are more settled in the afternoon. So we see the value in this. This is an after-school club. I don't remember the name of the game, but students wanted this club. So a teacher said, absolutely, I will help you with it. This is our Model United Nations Club, one of our art clubs, and this is a chess club. So like the culturally responsive education and social emotional learning goal, this particular goal also has a teacher-led committee who is going to lead this work. And finally, our last goal is to increase curriculum leaders and team leaders' capacity to improve teaching and learning. So we have had curriculum leaders and team leaders for many years, and they certainly have a lot of work to do. And they have job descriptions, but we have begun reviewing the job descriptions and sort of redefining them as things change. It's always important to do this. And we also are working on having teachers leading each other as they observe their colleagues. So this is just a visual that I came up with. I see our teacher leaders as sort of the next tier, sort of, I can't be doing everything. Jen Callahan, our assistant principal, can't be doing everything, but there's a lot of leadership here, and we have teachers who can make a difference and can really push work forward and push their colleagues forward. So I see them as really critical in moving our school improvement plan forward. So team leaders implement action plans for student success. They lead their teachers. We know all of that. Curriculum leaders, I'm working with them to shift their focus to instruction rather than just curriculum, so that they're really talking about instructional practices and analyzing instructional practices along with curriculum. And they are going to be leading the work of teachers observing teachers. So this slide just has a couple of visuals. I have really been working with these two groups. So our academic council, that's our curriculum leader group, and our leadership team, that's our team leader group. So these are just parts of agendas where I asked them to lead the group. So I was meeting with the leadership team, for example, on October 21st, and the academic council, I had two people lead this work on talking about this article that I asked them to read on maximizing instructional minutes. And the feedback I got from them when I worked with them was that it was a wonderful experience. They were happy to lead it, and they were going to push that out to the other people in their department. So that's just an example of that. Similarly, the leadership team, I gave them a task to do another time, and they met and they led the work. So really trying to empower them so that they know that they can make decisions. This is just an example of a template that they created. We had parent-teacher conferences last week, and each team had a link for their team conferences. So it's just something that they created. This is a social studies teachers meeting with their curriculum leader. This is our world language teachers meeting. This is our science teachers meeting. And then this is two of our science teachers looking at some lesson plans. So my final slide, just, you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward, just take the next step. And I really feel like it's important for us to keep this in mind, that you can't do it all at once, but we can take incremental steps and we'll get there. And again, the work has been really powerful getting to this point because of our colleagues and working so closely together with them. We are all aligned and we'll get there differently. And all schools have different personalities, different cultures, but it feels really exciting to be moving this work forward.
Thank you very much, Michelle. We really enjoyed your presentation, and it was great to see the elementary school principals present last month, and then also see you as well, Principal Carb, and the parallels between the presentations and seeing that collaboration that happens. So thank you very much, Michelle. I'm going to open it up to questions or comments from committee members. Yes, Joan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Lauren. Michelle, I think that this is such a big improvement. from the beginning, way back in 1993, when school improvement plans came about. I mean, it's just a big leap, I think, from even what we've even saw 2 years ago. And your last slide, you said that you just need to take one step at a time. I think you're taking a gigantic step. And I'm just looking to see how we can help to support. We have coming up in further on our budget, in the agenda, we're looking at budget goals. And I was just curious, especially on goal number 1, when you talked about computer science and you said you wanted to close that gap. Is that a financial impact? Is there things that you would need to close that gap from what the computer learning is 2% to what the percentages when students are going to be using computers and technology in the workforce?
I would say that's a bigger question for for the whole district, K to 12. I think Julie Doyle has done a lot of work here. So I would defer to Julie and her team, along with Greg and Stephanie. I think it's a big thing, and I think there's a lot that we can chip away at, and I think there's a lot that we're already doing that we need to articulate so that then we can identify where those gaps are. I think it's a little bit early to know, actually.
Okay, and then the other one's tagging on to also, a budget goal. Goal number 3, when you talked about a world of difference and having that program and having the training for the teachers, is there more budget that needs to be for that world of difference? And also for goal number 5, teachers observing teachers, would there, besides teachers having their prep period and having their lunch period, when you want to take them to observe other teachers, would that have an impact on the substitute line that would allow, maybe one substitute a day in a building, but going to different classes to allow teachers to observe other teachers?
So I will answer the question about the World of Difference program first. And Rhoda would be able to speak more about this, but we have a grant that is supporting that program. So we're in good shape there. And as far as teachers observing teachers, I'm sort of the mindset that there's always a way to figure it out. It's just a big puzzle. So I think obviously if we have teachers who are out sick for different reasons or out doing other things, we wouldn't have teachers observing other teachers. We would plan for it and we would make it work. So I don't see budget implications in either of those two places. Of course, if you want to hand me some money, I will take it, but I don't see a need right now. No.
Okay, thank you. I mean, because these are just, 5 great goals, and I don't want anything to be held back because we don't have the money because, of the low percentage that our budget increased by every year. And if money needs to be earmarked, and then we could give it a try. But I like to know that you are going, one step above. And for the World of Difference, you're getting it through grants, which is not an easy process to get the grant. So have you reached out to like the Northborough Ed Foundation to see if they could also give you money for writing a grant for the World of Difference?
So Rhoda wrote a grant, and I could be wrong if I don't know if it's through the state or what it's through. Maybe Stephanie can answer this, but I believe that is funded already. But you are right. The NEF is wonderful about supporting anything that we ask them to support. So certainly that's an option.
Okay, kudos to you and to the committee of your school improvement plans. One last question. Do we have community members that are serving on that, which was the first directive from the state in 1993?
So believe it or not, Leslie Rutan is still on our school council, which is wonderful. And then we also have some parents. So we have representation. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joan. Kelly?
Hi, thanks so much, Michelle. It was a great presentation. The one thing that kind of stuck out with me, and it's probably because I was at my daughter's pediatrician appointment today, was about the health class. So you said it was the first time ever they've had the health classes. Is this like a full course for all 3 years, or is it just 1 year, or is it just like a random one-off, or what's more about that? I'm just curious about.
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. So until this year, we have delivered the health curriculum through our phys ed department. So students had health 6 weeks a year, twice a week. So they got 12 health classes, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade. That's the way we delivered our health curriculum. So this year, though, we have a standalone health teacher. So the health teacher meets with every student gets one class a week in sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. So this is our first year doing it. So the kids will have more consistent health class experiences. And she has already partnered with a couple of our guidance counselors to talk about some of the mental health issues and how our guidance counselors are supporting students so that she's not repeating. She's met with our phys ed teachers as well. So I would say that, I know Mary Ellen Duggan is leading the work around the health curriculum, pre-K to 12. But I think right now we have a curriculum that she's using. She also taught at the high school for a little while, so she's got some experience there. So she's really already had a pretty significant impact on several of our students.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I just Mary Ellen's copy. I just think that's great. I guess I'm shocked that it didn't. I went to a Catholic school and we had health class, and from fifth grade on, I still remember the teacher, Mrs. Patton. Hi, Mrs. Patton, if you're watching. And I still remember her and teaching and doing it all the time. So I guess I just, when you grow up and you have an experience, I guess you just kind of like assume like, oh, it's just a normal thing to have and stuff. So that just struck me. So thank you, and I'm glad that's in our schools, and I hope we can continue to fund that and keep it going and elaborate all of our schools. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kelly. Michelle, I have a question about the Healthy and Balanced Learners goal. I know that you said that you were talking about that hour before and after school and how important those hours are for our students. Are there any resources or training that coaches or activity leaders get to provide social and emotional support for those students if they're not already teachers in the building?
I think that's a great question. And the answer is yes and no. So we are working on doing a better job of that. So it's been pretty recently that we've had people that are not teachers coaching some of our sports, for example. So there's the Corey and the story check that everybody has to go through. But then what's been very nice about our interscholastic athletics is that our assistant principal, Jen Callahan, really works with those people. So, and our nurse, Linda DeFutis, also works with them to sort of make sure they understand. We have all kinds of different kids on these teams. So they get some of that. The other thing is our math team is back. I'm so excited. We've had like a 4-year hiatus and a real need for this math team. We have a lot of kids who just love math. If you're not one of them, I'm sorry, but we do. And so we have these two parents, these wonderful parents that are coming in. And so I've thought about that. Yes, we've given them a little bit of training on the kids in the building, but we don't have sort of something consistent that we do with people. So I would think that would be a need. Most of the activities that are happening, for the most part, the advisors are teachers and do work in the building, but there's enough now that I think there's probably a need for that. So.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
And if I could just jump back to the digital literacy standards that you were discussing and that gap that you showed the pie graphs. So I know that was a nationwide statistic showing that 2% of students in computer science classes and then the workforce, how many actually need those skills. Do you have any ideas, or maybe this is a question for Julie, about sort of how we close that gap? And because it's not Northborough specific, this is nationwide. So, maybe there are schools in other parts of the country that are already doing great work that we can model.
I think, Julie did some training with the NASA group last week. And I think I think we are sort of at the beginning part. I mean, I know she and her staff have been working on really understanding the standards, but at the school level, we're really just digging into them. So I think until we really have a better sense of kind of where we are, we may be well beyond that. We just don't know. So I think until we get to that point, it's going to be a little bit hard to assess where our kids are when they leave high school, because that's what we're all, trying to do, is to prepare them for when they graduate. So I think that will be a question for Julie as we get a little bit further along in the process.
I can just add to that, part of the assessing that Michelle is referring to is looking at where those statistics are, looking specifically at within the math and, the STEM courses, how much is computer science. And as we look at our digital literacy and computer science standards, our first layer of work is making sure that everybody understands them and that we have a really clear inventory and understanding of where they are being taught and are there any gaps. And one of the areas that we anticipate we may be looking at is where are students exposed to computer science that it's sort of an option. And so some kids are following that path. And where do we need to make it more integrated so that all kids of all different populations are exposed to it at a much younger age, and then have the sort of pathways and opportunities to develop. Because if we wait until high school or we wait until college to try to change the demographics and the skills and knowledge that kids are coming out of college with, we're too late. So that's really part of the question we're trying to answer is, starting from a very young age, how do we create those opportunities for all children, and then the range of pathways.
That's really helpful. Thank you so much, Stephanie and Michelle. Any final comments or questions from committee members? All right. Michelle, thank you so much for that presentation. It really paints a great picture about what's going on at the middle school and what we'll see over the next few years. And I know that you put a lot of hard work into that, your team at the middle school. So thank you so much. And we're glad that you were able to be here to present tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Of course.
You have not heard the last of Michelle tonight. So, she'll be presenting her principal's report as well.
Perfect. And that's next on our agenda, actually. So we moved up the principal's report for this meeting. Greg, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to just share that in the past, we've had all the principals attend our school committee meetings, and to be more efficient, there will be a representative at each future committee meeting. And when the principal's presenting, they'll present on behalf of the larger principal team. But that school's PTO will also present when that principal's kind of sharing. So this evening, we have Alana Sear presenting on behalf of the Northborough principals, but we also have the Proctor PTO who will do a presentation. And then Michelle will share on the great work that's happening at Millikan. And then in December, we'll start on our rotation of one principal presenting for the larger team.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So Alana, when you're ready, we'd love to hear from you.
Sure. So on behalf of the elementary principals, just to share some updates on the work that we've been engaged in with our staff and our community and our students. So we're looking forward to parent-teacher conferences that'll be taking place next week. The sign-up has been active for about a week now, and you see it filling up every day. We know that our teachers are eager to connect with our families and vice versa as well. November conferences present a wonderful opportunity for our teachers to share really important information about progress, about, their impressions. You really get to know students in the first couple of months of school, and also hearing from our parents and our families. They know their children obviously best. So it's important that we have their voice at the table when we're talking about goal setting and progress. So we're looking forward to those 2 days next week. And what's nice is that families have the option to choose whether they have a virtual conference or an in-person conference. So that's nice for families to have that flexibility of, participating by Zoom or by phone or video chatting might be better for a family versus coming in, or it could be the latter. So we're excited to connect, and the conference spots are filling up very quickly. Also coinciding with that, in many of our schools, happening with conferences or very recently, the Scholastic book fairs are back, which I think if I had $1 for every time a student asked me, are we having a book fair? Are we having a book fair? I'd have enough to buy my own books at the book fair. So it's there. The book fair is very popular. Scholastic is a wonderful organization to work with. They partner with us. We talk about things we'd like to see at the book fair, different genres, different types of books, other options for students. They have STEM kits. So a couple of our schools will have those during the conference week, and families are able to come in. We have hours and time set up where they can do shopping. There's an e-wallet option for students. So if a family can't come in, we have time built in for students during the school day as well. So we're excited to get those books into the hands of our students. Very active are our fourth graders with their recorder program in all of our schools. So they started that a little while ago, and you can hear them practicing, and they're so excited and so eager. And I just want to give a big shout out to our music teachers who are working diligently with our protocols to do recorders very safely. And the students are active participants in keeping themselves safe as well. So hats off to them, and as well as our fifth graders and the band program. Becky Makara has worked incredibly hard to structure a safe learning environment. And we have very active fifth grade bands at each of our schools. So I just wanted to highlight that with our students. And with regards to our teachers and some of the work we've been doing, and Michelle talked a lot about the work at Milliken, and it really resonates with the work that's happening in the elementary schools. We've been meeting in our professional learning communities, our PLCs, now for about a month. And it's been such an incredible opportunity to work with our partner schools and getting together virtually each month and working on targeted goals and objectives related to our SIPs, and having really rich conversation and dialogues. I know this week, Amy Souls and I are meeting with the Z and Proctor teachers, and just the connecting of the dots with the work, and teachers asking each other questions and talking about the things they're doing related to instructional practice. It's just been great being part of that, with the sharing and the work that they're doing together on behalf of students. And I just want to thank and highlight, Mary Coakley, Kathy Lizotte for their math leadership and work. That's really excelled our work and helped us with so many resources and tools that they've helped bring to the table that our teachers are using with students. And then our building reading specialists and Megan Kelty as well. Their lens and their expertise has also moved the work in our PLCs forward. So it's there's never a shortage of work, but it's very, very exciting to dig into this and to work on behalf of our students with each other. And then, as Michelle mentioned, we had a professional learning day on Monday, and at the elementary level, we worked with Jennifer Lipton O'Connor. We had a morning structured around social emotional learning with a specific emphasis on the CASEL framework, and we really dug into that. And Jennifer did a presentation for all of our elementary staff. And then after that, we engaged in hands-on activities in our building. And it was really exciting, the dialogue amongst staff. Many of us did mixed group activities where you might have, say, a fourth grade teacher working with a music teacher and an ESP and this, and the art teacher. And their conversations and connections with each other were really exciting to listen to. And it's continued into this week. For example, I had a goals meeting with a teacher this morning, and she was talking about all the pieces that resonated with her and how she's rethinking some of her morning meeting time and what she can do with that connected to the CASEL framework. So we just wanted to thank Jennifer Lipton O'Connor for leading that work. And we know that this is a focus area that we're going to continue to engage our staff in over the coming months. So is it okay, Greg, if I transition to our PTO presentation? I don't know if there's
Oh,
any questions.
That'd be great. And I did make you a co-host, Solana. So
Thank you. So I think, one of the biggest components of our schools that really make the Northborough schools special is our active and vibrant PTOs, and Proctor is certainly no exception. We've had just amazing parent-teacher organization members since I've been here, and truly feel so grateful and blessed by the work that they do for our students. Their efforts are tireless. They're always looking for ways to enrich our students, through activities during the school day, after school events, helping our teachers through grants. And we're just very, very fortunate. So I'm going to screen share in a moment, and I'd like to introduce Susie Cislika, who's our PTO president, and she's going to share the work of our PTO.
I should have put my title with my name so no one would be scared when they saw me pop up on screen. Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. It's been a while. So I became president this year, and I inherited from somebody else on screen right now, Kelly. So this year we have really tried to work with what we can and how we can get into the schools, and really trying to engage the students and get them excited again about being back to school and acting on that excitement with the families. And we're really trying to capture not only the kindergarten families, but the first grade. We're really worried because we haven't gotten to know a lot of them. So we did have a presence at the open house, and we're excited about the new parents that want to be involved. So we have a dad signed up for the book fair sign up. That's right there for you, right? So here's our presentation. So I'm the president. Our vice president is Beth Hennessy. Our treasurer is Katie Eburn. And our secretary is Heather Cummings. And I put Lisa Smith in parentheses because we are losing Heather this week to Franklin. I will be reaching out to their PTO to let them know she's on her way. She's a fabulous secretary, but Lisa is been working with us from the start this year in several events. So we're very excited to have her. And this is our budget. Right now we're at expenses for the $14,500. We've set it up for enrichment, a good amount of budget, although we don't have everything set, as you'll see later. Enrichment after school, we're also putting stuff together, the PTO overhead, scholarships to help the students that are in need, because we don't want to have to say no to anybody that wants to participate in something. Our school grants, spirit events, which are things that we put on just for fun and not for fundraising. Hospitality, that's like our teacher appreciation and whatnot. The gift cards for teachers, and we added field trips because we didn't know what could be possible later on. So some of our volunteer roles are a volunteer coordinator, after school enrichment, photographer we've added. We have a fantastic photographer, and we set up a new file so it'll be easy for the 5th grade yearbook parents to really access it, and for ourselves. The fun run coordinator, room parents, which we haven't really utilized yet this year, trunk or treat coordinator, enrichment coordinator, book fair, and a spring fair coordinator. So enrichment programs, I wanted to list because we didn't get a chance to present last year. Although you did hear from me, I will acknowledge that, but we did not present on the PTO. In 2021, 2020 to 2021, we had a Zoom with Noelle Lambert, who's a paraplegic Olympian, and that was amazing. Kelly designed an athletic card for her so the kids could write their facts on the back of it. She described her accident in very frank detail and how her parents dealt with it and everything else. And she was fantastic. So we'd love to have her come back. I know she participated recently in the Olympics in Tokyo too. We also had the Reynolds Brothers Zoom, which the kids loved, and they were drawing right along with them, and they were so engaging and amazing, and described how they tap into their creativity and ideas, and right after, when they wake up in the morning, all their dreams down and everything. We had Ivy, the determined dog, come, who is a paraplegic dog as well, and talk about her struggles. Well, her owner talked about her struggles, and we'd love to have Ivy come visit in the future as well. But she is now a big sister, so we're kind of waiting on scheduling that. We also had a Crocodile River Zoom, and they're a fantastic African drumming group that the town of Northborough actually had in the park behind me this summer. And my boys were even up and dancing in our kitchen. So they're just a fantastic group and very vibrant. And this year we have planned in the spring for Josh Funk to come, and he's going to be doing different things with different grades and kind of spend some time with us and get into the art of creative writing with the children. So PTO sponsored events. We had the back to school teacher luncheon. Instead of parents dropping off food and signing up to bring waters or yogurts, we now offer Venmo or check option, and we utilize festive breads locally to make them lunches, and we stock their teacher room, and it was very popular, and it's popular with the parents. I think it's just easier for them sometimes to just, Venmo us the money instead of having to figure out when they're going to make an egg casserole. So that might be a change that we're making going forward. We had our back to school pizza party because the logistics of barbecuing and people bringing in the sides and everything were too much. So we had a pizza party by the wonderful, wonderful Northborough house. And he gave us the pizzas at a minimum and insisted that we make a profit. I wasn't going to. He insisted, he said, the schools are hurting, do this. And then our first one was rained out. So we set up a drive-through for people to come and pick up their pizzas. And it was very successful because they do think Principal Sear lives at the school now. And in the festival, as we're handing out the pizzas. And so we ended up rescheduling it for a week later, and Northborough House gave us the same deal again and wanted us to do it all over again. So we shifted our, if you remember the spring fair from, I think it was 2020, it seems like it was 4 years ago, we had a DJ for our spring fair planned, and we've had to push it off and push it off. So we utilized him for the Halloween party, or for the back to school pizza party instead of our Halloween party, which would have been indoors, and we're not, no parties indoors. And it was so awesome. We had Yeoman's ice cream truck come, and it was a huge dance party outside, and the kids just had a blast. And it was great meeting parents. And I mean, even one parent came up to me and said, my daughter never dances and she's dancing here. So it was really great to see. We started a trunk or treat because we do love fall holidays at Proctor. And we had, I want to say, we charged $5 a child. We bought candy. People came and decorated their trunks with amazing creativity. We had some crafts and games set up. And I think we had about 140 people. I never did a count, but we set it up 1/2 hour for one half of the alphabet and the other half hour for the other half. And it was so popular when we were blessed with great weather. Holiday staff appreciation, will probably do something then too. The Proctor Papa's pancake breakfast, we don't know what we're going to do yet, but we like having that something in the middle of kind of winter. So we're going to be thinking about what we can do then, if it's a pop-up cocoa and sledding, or we're not sure, but we're very creative. So we don't know what's going to come. And then Teacher Appreciation Week in May, when we'll probably do another lunch. Last year we had the ice cream truck come another day. It was great. So we just want to let them know how much we do appreciate everything that you're doing for our students. So fundraising, the back to school pizza party, we did make a profit off of that. I think it was about $4 or $5 a pizza. The fun run, which I'll get to the exact amount, but it was a fantastic success. We did handle it ourselves. Would have been very hard for us to pay a company to come in, having missed 2 of our biggest fundraisers in the last 2 years, which being our spring fair. So we decided to do it ourselves and utilizing Google Forms and whatnot. And we decided we're not going to do that again. But for this year, it was fantastic. And we raised, I think it was over $9,100 so far. Money's still kind of trickling in. The kids loved it. They loved it. The running, there was so much enthusiasm that day. And I had a megaphone. I ran a pre-workout. They brought their own water bottles out. We were trying to be very mindful of COVID, and the kids just had a blast running. So it was so much fun and a great weather day as well. Spirit wear, we did an awesome job. Kelly Gannett designed a new logo for Proctor, and it went over wonderful. And we did one on, I forgot to change. I was going to wear my green t-shirt with the Proctor logo. And then we did a white t-shirt with a rainbow logo that just was our biggest seller. So we made over $500 on that as well. The silent auction is something we heard from one of another elementary school doing well. So we're thinking about doing that because we still have things from our spring fair and we have people donating stuff again. So that's going to be something we're going to look into, possibly different from a spring fair. A spring fair, which we would hold outside. And we've already talked to our vendors about that. So kind of putting the wheels in motion for that. And restaurant nights, we're going to be starting up now that the fun run is done. That was our big October event, followed by the trunk or treat. So we just haven't had the bandwidth really to get going on that. And we don't want things to get lost in the shuffle for the parents either. Playtime we will be doing later this month with a take home. So parents will be able to purchase a product, bring it home. They give you the paints and the paintbrushes and everything, and they bring it back to school. Playtime comes and picks it up, and then they deliver it back to our school. So we worked with them during the pandemic, and they were wonderful. And then some sort of end of year celebration as well. Usually we do a field day, so we're not sure how we'll handle that either, but we're very excited about appointments that became available today. So hoping things will just keep going forward and up. So our fundraising to date is at $10,276, and the majority of that, as I said, was from the fun run, the spirit wear, Bay State textiles. That's the bins that are outside, and they take sneakers and rags and clothes and everything in there. Back to school pizza was $246, and then our EPI supply kits, which we offer to parents at the beginning of school year, so you can just send us a check and their school supplies will be there when they get there. We're $69. And our grant process, we did put off a little while because we really had no idea how the fun run was going to go. It's been 2 years since we've done it. So we put off our grants for the teachers for a little bit, and they're going to be there. The letters have been sent out to them. One thing we did do with the fun run is that we really want to get some new playground equipment, including slides for the lower wing, which are the younger students play on that playground, and another climbing structure or something on the other playground. Stuff we started researching before the pandemic, and now we're going to have to pick back up. So things that we did grant last year for teachers were the social emotional learning program Second Step, the boom whacker sets for music, Proctor library collection development, a new radio system, and which we utilized during the fun run. It is great. And indoor recess materials, which was something else that to carry on for the years.
I think that's it. So I'll stop.
Okay, so that's
that's the end.
Thank you so much, Susie and Alana, for your presentations. It's great that you're here with us tonight, Susie. And I want to open it up to our committee members. If you have any questions or comments for Susie for the PTO, or for Alana for Proctor, or any of the elementary schools, feel free to raise your hands. Thanks, Kelly. You can go first.
I just want to say that I lucked out and not having to do a presentation of last year. So thank you.
I was thinking about that.
Lucky Kelly. Greg.
So I just want to echo Alana's remarks around we're very appreciative and grateful for our PTOs. They do amazing work. And then I also want to just confirm that Alana does live at Proctor School. So
She does. I know.
Yeah, little secret.
She's got a
back.
little rollout bed.
Erin.
Thank you, Susie, for your presentation. Lots of good stuff at Proctor. The Josh Funk presentation, is he coming in person or is that on Zoom?
Coming in person. And he's great because he's going to do a lot of small groups.
Okay.
So, and he had said to us that as we get closer and we're looking at safety measures and where we're at, we can make adjustments.
And is he going to do K to 5 or just upper wing or?
Yep.
K to 5?
Yep, K to 5. And I think that's one of the challenges is the enrichment piece is finding a lot of places that, have been our go-tos in the past that we've had great success with and have really enjoyed are not doing it currently. Mm-hmm. So it's when we're able to, grab onto an opportunity that's safe, that matches up to standards we're working on in school, we're trying to capitalize on that. So we're hoping to have some other enrichment events when, things become a little bit more safer and there's more people out there who feel that they can come into schools and do some work with us as well.
That's great.
Thank you, Erin. Joan?
Susie, thank you very much for your presentation, and please take the thanks from the entire committee back to all the membership of the PTO. It's nice to see that you still are doing the Proctor Papas, which go back many, many years. And it's also very enlightening to see the integral part that the PTO plays in at Proctor and along with Principal Alana Sear. And I especially like the grants because some of those things that are in the grants would be sometimes come things through our budget, such as the SEL program and even the library collection. And I know when those grants come up, the teachers may have a need. Instead of waiting a whole year, they could get the grant at an earlier time. So thank you for all encompassing. And it seemed like you covered so many curriculum areas through those grants. So Susie, thank you very much for the time you extended to us tonight and the wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you, Joan. Erin, did you have anything else you wanted to say? Okay. And Susie, I echo what Joan was saying. In hearing you speak, Susie, as well as Alana, I think a lot of the things you're talking about, playing recorders and going on field trips and having these family socials, these are things that kids are going to remember for the rest of their lives. And so it's really important that the PTO and the schools are working together, and you're doing just such an amazing job. So thank you for making the school experience and then also the extracurricular experiences for our students so rich and welcoming. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I do have a story about the recorders. My son came home and he's like, "Did you know the recorders cost $5? Isn't that a great deal?" I was like,
that is a great deal.
It is a great deal. He's one of the fourth graders, so.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. And I just want to say thank you to Erin too, because she'll be presenting, I'm sure, and the Lincoln PTO and the Z PTO, because we really took the opportunity of COVID to kind of all work together and text and email and share ideas and companies and everything. So it's really helped, I think, overall. Everything, that you have, we can just like quick text somebody and say, who did you use? What are you guys doing for this? How are you handling this? So, and thank you to Greg for the superintendent advisory meetings, because that really kind of bridged everything for us.
Susie, I just want to comment that I've seen big changes since we've had a change of leadership in the PTO at Proctor. So.
I was about to do a friend's motion, and I was like, "Oh wait, we're televised. Wait, I'm not gonna."
Lauren, I believe we have Michelle Carb for the Melican update. So thank you, Susie.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. You too, Michelle. We're looking forward to hearing your update as well.
I think I've taken a lot of airtime, so I'll try to keep it a little bit short. So yes, there's a lot going on at Melican, of course, just like there is at all the other schools. We had our parent-teacher conferences last week on Tuesday and Thursday. And we also had our Scholastic Book Fair last week. And believe it or not, the middle schoolers were extremely excited about the book fair as well. So it was exciting to get some of those more typical fall activities back and get people in the building. It was nice to see parents in the building. And we did a combination of Zoom and in-person conferences as well. We have had some staff members who are going to be doing other conferences as well after school on some days for parents who couldn't make last week work. So that's great. Our fall interscholastic sports seasons wrapped up this week. And I just want to thank the folks who coached our students, and our students were wonderful. So it was, again, last year we didn't have fall sports. This year we did. So it was really just exciting. And when students stayed after as spectators, they were wonderful, supportive. At one point before one of the games, I think it was soccer, one of our students ordered a pizza, and one of our members of our girls soccer team, as they were watching the boys, and shared it with the other girls team. Not sure about COVID safety, but it was just a nice bonding thing to watch with middle schoolers. They're just craving social connection. So it was really wonderful to see. Our student council organized Spirit Week last week, and it culminated with costumes on Friday. So we raised some money for the Northborough Food Pantry. Students and staff members dressed up and they donated. And then before Thanksgiving, we will have our second annual Gobble Wobble here at school, and it will be a walk that happens during the school day. All students have an opportunity to participate, and we ask for donations toward the Northborough Food Pantry for that as well. And I mentioned earlier about our PD on Monday. And as a direct result of our training from the Anti-Defamation League and Safe Schools, we have already that night, we have two book groups that have formed from staff members, one focusing on a transgender author and experience, and one on teaching in culturally responsive classrooms. So it's really excited, completely voluntary. They just happened really organically because staff felt so invigorated and really excited about, getting into the work. So that was really nice to see. And our 7th and 8th grade jazz band has begun rehearsals. Our 6th grade stage band has also begun rehearsals. So that's really nice. We are doing a school musical this year, we hope. So the information night, parent and student information night was tonight via Zoom, and we will begin our rehearsals in January, we hope. Fingers crossed that we will have a live production later in the spring. So again, a lot going on, and really happy to see the students excited about what's happening.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Does anyone have any questions or comments about Principal Carb's report?
By the way, I actually do live here. I'm still at school.
I was actually going to ask that. I was going to be like, wow, you have a really home office is really in depth there.
Complete with cinder blocks and everything.
I think that's a prerequisite of being a principal in Northborough is long days, long hours.
Michelle, it doesn't look like we have any questions or comments for you, but we appreciate your update. And I thought it was really exciting to hear about those book groups that have formed, and look forward to hearing the titles of those books as well. If you could share those, that would be great. Thank you.
I will.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to Principal Sear and Principal Carb for your updates this evening. And Mr. Martineau, if it's your will.
Yes, so thank you, Alana, and thank you, Michelle, and have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to see you all.
Thank you.
Here.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so next on our agenda is our legislative update. There's none at this time, so we're going to move on to approval of grants and donations. Greg, could you please set us up for these two grants?
Sure. So we were fortunate recipients of two donations, one from Amazon in the amount of $2,200, and I'd like to thank Keith and the principals for organizing that work. We're very grateful. And the second donation school supplies to Proctor School from McKesson Corporation. And then upon your approval this evening, I will be sending out a thank you letter to both of the companies.
Thank you so much. So we're looking for a motion to approve both of these donations. Thanks, Joan.
Chairman Lauren, would you like it to be in one motion or do you want them in two separate?
One motion works. Thank you.
Okay. And then I have a question after the motion is on the table and seconded. Okay.
Sure.
I move that we accept with great gratitude the $2,200 grant for school supplies to the Northborough Public Schools from Amazon, and also the donation of school supplies for students to Proctor School from McKesson Corporation.
We have a motion
Aaron?
and a second by Erin. Thank you. And discussion. Joan, you had a question.
Yes, Greg, when it said the first one is from Amazon, how is that divided up among the schools?
So Keith can speak to that, but it was basically we identified new teachers in each of our buildings, and those were the folks we focused on, and Amazon provided school materials for those new teachers across our our 5 schools.
Okay, and then the school supplies for the students to Proctor School, how is that, are those supplies that stay in school, or are these ones that students would be taking back and forth to home to class?
School supplies for their classroom experience.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Kelly?
So for the Amazon gift card or the school supplies, how did that come about? Did they offer, or did somebody reach out to them? Like, how is that? Can we reach out to them for more supplies?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did reach out to us. And
they
so
have their
like,
place in here in Northborough.
like to make a donation. So we have a nice connection now with Amazon, and we'll continue to reach out and partner to benefit the Northborough Public Schools.
That'd be great.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we're going to take a roll call vote on the motion, which is to approve both donations that Joan listed, both the school supplies from Amazon as well as the school supplies from McKesson Corporation. Roll call vote. Joan?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And myself, Lauren, yes. So it passes unanimously. Thank you so much, both to Amazon as well as McKesson Corporation for your donations to our schools. We really appreciate it. We're going to move on to a discussion about our neighborhood schools and their current configuration. Greg?
Yes, so we have amazing elementary schools, and they've been organized by neighborhood schools for many years. And any good organization, evaluates and assesses the advantages and disadvantages of current configurations. And what I am proposing to the school committee is that we form a elementary grade configuration study group to look at the advantages and the disadvantages of our current structures, and then to look at enrollment trends and projections in grade level configurations, really to see if there are other opportunities to effectively maximize our facilities, people resources, and educational materials. And the committee's responsibility would be to study enrollment, to look at other potential opportunities for grade configuration, and then also look at our current configuration and present that information back to the school committee in a formal report. So I will share my screen to share my thinking in terms of what that would look like. Second. So much like any other study group that we formed in the past, really thinking that the study group is made up of key stakeholders and reflective of our community. So I'm proposing one Northborough School Committee member, 4 parents, 1 from each of the elementary schools, 4 elementary educators, again, 1 from each elementary school, an elementary Northborough principal, 2 central office leadership team members, myself and Assistant Superintendent Reinhorn, a member of NSPAC, and a member of PTO or NEF or both. That is the composition of the study group. And then in terms of the timeline for the work, really organizing, communicating out to the community the purpose of the study group and why it is being formed and what we're hoping to accomplish, and then setting the meeting dates. In December, scheduling the first meeting and really identifying those subcommittees to move the work forward. And then January through February, monthly meetings, surveying faculty, staff, families in the community, and doing an analysis. And then March, preparing a report with recommendations. And then finally, in April, having the study group present to the school committee its findings. So that is our thinking. And although I don't need a vote, I think a symbolic approval from the committee to support this work would be important. And again, the goal is to really study our current configuration and make recommendations for potential improvements.
Thank you, Greg. It looks like we have a few questions and comments. So Kelly, you can go first.
I love this. I've been thinking about this for years and trying to figure out something, especially with the enrollment numbers the way they are and the redistricting that has to happen. So I think this is great. I love that taking an initiative this year and doing this. And if we need a volunteer for a school committee representative, I would gladly sit on that committee. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Joan?
Yes, Greg, I applaud you and your administration for getting this study group and having the timeline so concise into this. And my only question is, because it seems like the composition of the committee is just all educators or people involved in the schools, have you given any thought to having a community member at large? I'm thinking of all these young families that are moving in that may have infants or pre-kindergarten children that may want to get involved, or even having a board of selectmen representative on this. I'm just thinking that it doesn't seem like we have anybody community at large.
I think that's a great suggestion. I will add a member from the community, Joan, to it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan. So we do not need to take a formal vote. However, I guess I would like to hear any final thoughts about this. I know that we've heard positive thoughts from Joan as well as Kelly. So Erin, any thoughts on this study group?
I guess my question, Greg, was, would you be kind of outlining what you foresee the schools being set up as, or is it just giving them a blank slate? And what is your goal for the committee to kind of?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think we have some ideas, obviously, but I also want to keep it an open mind. I want to look at all different opportunities. My prediction is we'll land on two potential scenarios.
Okay. I think it's worth looking into for sure, especially given spacing, staffing. And I think the biggest challenge we face is the class size and redistricting, which is very disruptive to families and kind of loses the purpose of the neighborhood schools.
Thank you for your comments, Erin. Joan, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, but I was ready to make a motion, even though it is not needed, but it would be a symbolic motion to support this.
Absolutely, go for it.
I'd like to make a motion that we support the configuration and the composition of the neighborhood schools study group, along with the timeline.
Kelly Gannett, second.
Great, we have a motion and a second to support the study group and timeline. Any discussion? All right, we'll take a symbolic. Oh, yes, Joan.
But just one thing, if we could, what I'd like to add to the motion also is that we would, that Greg would be making an addition of a community member at large.
Thank you. Kelly, do you amend your second? This is symbolic
No.
anyways.
No, I do. That's fine. Yes.
Great, thank you. So we'll take a symbolic vote. Joan,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and myself, Lauren, yes. So we look forward to seeing where that study group takes us. And it sounds like we have a volunteer already, Kelly, but if anyone else is interested in serving as a volunteer, please let me know, and then we can discuss who will serve on that capacity. Great, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our last item under new business, which is our test and stay and COVID update. So that means that it's Mary Ellen's turn to shine.
And before we turn it over to Mary Ellen, I just want to acknowledge the great work of our school nurses that this year for our school nurses is equally, or if not more difficult than last year. And we are just so fortunate to have dedicated, committed school nurses doing amazing work. And then obviously Mary Ellen's leadership has been outstanding. So I just want to acknowledge the effort and the expertise we have in our community with our school nurses.
I second that motion. So the nurses have gone way above and beyond anything that's been expected of them this year. You ask any school nurse anywhere in the state, it is 100 times worse than last year. It's just a lot that they're dealing with. So I want to thank them for every hour they put in during the school day and taking care of the kids in front of them, and every hour after school doing things that are needed to be done in order to go in the next day and be able to do everything. So our COVID numbers in Northborough are low. They have been low all week, which is, I mean, for the past few weeks, really. Seems like we're switching back and forth between the 3 districts about who's going to be the hot spot for the week. But Northborough has been low, which is nice. And our test and stay site is going great. It's staffed by our support staff from Purple Shield Medical, who are housed in New Bedford. So people drive up from New Bedford every day to do that site. This is probably the least amount of people we've had at this and stay is this week, and there was like less than 20, which is a nice morning, you know, where there wasn't any lines waving out to the street. So that has been a collaboration between so many people to get that test and stay site up. It was with the DPW, with the Board of Health agent, with the Board of Health office. They ordered signs with Westborough Board of Health to get some signs that we needed also. So it's been a collaboration with a lot of people. Our facility staff goes every morning and puts the signs out for me and opens up and turns the space heater on for the people that are coming. So Bud has been phenomenal, going every morning a little bit before 6 to open it up. So that's going great. Our pooled screening or COVID safety checks, as we're supposed to be referring to them as, we're working with the company still 1, 2, 3 times a week to try and get the things that we want, the information that we want. And this week I'm told it's going to be that way. I'll be able to run reports by school, which is going to be really nice to see, because we're sending home a lot of kits and we don't know which ones are coming back or what percentage we're getting back of who's consented. I think there's been some confusion with the one consent for all the testing programs. So I think that's this will help us to reach out to those people who are sending tests home for and they're not participating, because that's fine. Just let us know you don't want any more tests to be sent home. So you know, you can choose, you can pick and choose. The parents can what they want to participate in, but we don't know that by just the consent. It's just a one size fits all. So so that seems to be going well. Everybody's kind of fallen into a groove with that. as we started off, there were a few little bumps in the road, but we seem to be working with that company very well with our team from CIC to get that up and running, and so that other districts that are starting up won't run into the same problems we did. I think that's probably about it for the two COVID updates and the testing program, and then we can go into other details if you want to.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. I know we're probably going to have some questions, so let's start with Kelly.
Thank you. Thanks, Mary Ellen. Yeah, I have to agree. The nurses are amazing. I mean, not only are they dealing with all this COVID stuff, but they have to still do their normal day in and day job. I mean, I got a call from Nurse Gage on Friday from Proctor, and of course I was like, hi, and then I was like, oh, hi. You know, my daughter fell in a puddle and she needed new clothes. So I was like, okay, great. Yes, that I can do. But, you know, she still has to do with all these things. And I'm sure she had about 50 billion screenings on her desk at the same time. But I have two questions for you. The one about the screenings is, so I know there was definitely some confusion on the screenings and getting in. And then it's different than last year, where last year you can sign into a portal and you can get like, yes, my child's negative, you know, and find out if they're negative. But it seems like this year there's no way to know if they're negative. But at the same time, we also got notification home that there was a bunch of tests that weren't being able to be run because they were improperly done. So is there any way with the companies, if I know you said you're going to be getting reports back, but is there any way to also find out from those reports, like, who are the ones who aren't getting run, and what is there something that they're doing that they can be doing differently to make it be able to be read and all that stuff? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make total sense.
Okay.
So we get a report. I get a report every week about why samples were rejected. So we, the past few weeks, we've sent in about just a little over between 18 and 1900 tests is what we've sent in the past 2 weeks, and there's been close to 100 rejected out of that. The main reason for rejection is that the people have never consented. So they've done everything else, but they never filled out a consent. So
then how are they getting the test home?
So that's questionable to me too, but I think like it might not be in the elementary schools. It could be the high school. Remember, we're talking about all of the tests was 1800 to 1900. So at the high school, you know, if they drop off a test, they take one, we handed them out in class in the first few weeks to try and get as many people as we could. So the second most common reason is that there is no identifiers on the tube. So people register the tube, they do their sample and then never write the name or date of birth on the tube. So with this, we didn't have to do that last year, right? So we had our, everybody had their own QR code. Our lab last year was in Maryland. Our lab this year is in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has much stricter rules for testing than our company in Maryland did. So by their lab requirements, they need to have the two identifiers on the tube in order to be able to run the test. So if there is the birth date or the name don't match what that consent was, it won't get run. If there's nothing on the tube, which happens, they just come in blank, it won't get run. If someone registered their tube at home, like you're supposed to do, and they did all that and didn't write the name on, we can see that and we can write the name and the date of birth on there. But if they didn't register the tube, we don't know who that belongs to, so that can't get run. If someone put like their name was John Smith and they put Jack Smith, that doesn't match, it won't get run, it will get rejected. So there are a lot of reasons why things get rejected. And then there's the regular ones, like there was no liquid in the tube. They poked it through the foil liner. They put the swab in upside down. So those regular reasons why things get rejected along with that. But those are a small number compared to the number, which is no consent, no identifiers, and then the identifiers don't match. Those are the three main reasons why they're rejected. So it's really important to write your name and date of birth legibly in ink not smudged. It's hard to do. I smudge mine every single week and have to write over it when I do it. So it's really hard to do. But I was meeting today. Greg walked in on a meeting today I was having with them to talk about, I met with two different people about this company today. The Shaw Foundation, which is helping all of these companies with their testing and trying to get them on board so it works for everybody in the state. Just to talk about ways, like I asked about unique QR codes for each person. If instead of having to put your name and your date of birth in every week, go into that portal to do that, if we could, if they could work on that. So they have put it to their development team to work on those things. And they've been very responsive, like their dashboard, everything we've asked for, they're working on, or it's in process and should be there by the end of the week. So I know it's hard for parents to not get the results. So that is, I did put that request in. I don't think that will work. Like we worked with JCM, we were the pilot for that program because we asked for it. So it took a lot for them to get that set up. So I'm not sure this company has the capacity as they're testing, they're part of the whole program for the state. So, but I did notify people that, if they didn't have a consent and sent a thing in, I did notify them. I emailed those people if their identifiers didn't match, like people put the wrong birthday on, like you get your kids mixed up, they put their own birthday on. We've had a lot of those, or they put today's date instead of the birth date. So, just reminding people of those simple things that, when we're in a rush, we might, do it quickly and not even think about it. But if we catch them, we can fix them. But it's the whole catching them that's tough. Yeah, and we're not scanning them in. So our support team is.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that it was parents like having a time, like when you see that all these, numbers aren't getting turned in. But I was wondering if the families are even knowing that they're not being run because there's no, sorry, my things are low, my batteries are low. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not, but yeah. So anyways, so that was just my question about that. My other question was about lunches, which I don't know if you're going to be talking about that in the future, or if you want me to hold that, or if you want me to ask that now.
You can ask that now, Kelly.
Okay. So my question was, I know that in Southborough, they had a situation and they were talking about moving the lunches 6 feet apart versus 3 feet or whatever it is. And that was just a community. I've had a few community people reaching out to me asking, is that something Northborough is moving towards? And if they're not right now, what's the criteria that has to be in order to move to that?
So we in Southborough, as you know, there was an outbreak at one of the schools. So the medical advisory team had a few emergency meetings. Thank God for them. And what came from those meetings was that the easiest, well, not easiest for Keith and his team, but the most logical first step was to separate the desks at lunch to 6 feet apart. So this was a logistical thing that needed to be done. But with all of the principals on board and Keith and his team, they were able to do that and to get that done. By the end of this week, we will be 6 feet apart at lunch. And then it is moving forward to do that in the Northborough schools also.
Mary Ellen, can I just make a comment that so yesterday's news, obviously with the vaccinations being approved for 5 to 11-year-olds, we're really thinking of whatever shifts we need to make are short term, 8 to 12 weeks. So we give those families who are choosing to have their children vaccinated. And we think we'll be in a very different position. So whatever the moves we're making now are to buy us 8 to 12 weeks, and then hopefully we'll be able to shift back to a more normal schooling environment, depending on the vaccination rates.
And I think we needed to focus, in Southborough where the crisis was right now, really, the outbreak was.
Agree. No, that's great. And I'm sure families will be excited to hear that it will be moving to Northborough too, eventually, as soon as,
So yeah,
you
it's a
know, the
little bit,
logistics are worked out.
the setups of the school are a little bit different, so it's
Yeah.
gonna take a little bit more,
Oh, yeah. Well, I
figuring
know
out time with
Proctor, I
that.
mean, we have a smaller space, so, you know, I think they're probably gonna have to utilize both gym and cafeteria at the same time in order to do it and stuff, which then displaces the gym class. And now that it's getting colder out, you know, so Keith, I support you and all that you guys do, and the custodial staff. It's not easy by any means, so keep up
So
the
like,
good work.
like Greg said, we're hoping that it's just like a short-term fix, you know, so we till.
Yeah. Hey, my girls have appointments on Sunday morning.
So while we're promoting that, the color sign up for the vaccine clinic on Friday and Saturday is going live at 10 p.m. tonight. There's my plug.
Ooh.
So
I'm gonna tell people.
yes, put it out there.
Excellent. Kelly, anything else before we move on? All right, thank you so much. Erin.
Actually, Kelly had my question. It was just people feeling frustrated that they never get results, and you kind of send that test and then you don't really ever know what happens to it, but just looking for an update on that. So we've already addressed that.
So I think no news is good news if you filled out everything right. Right.
Right. I think that's the tricky part, is that knowing, did my kid even hand it in? Did it, you know?
Yeah,
This
so
kind of
that is the hard part,
information.
because if there's no name or date of birth, there's no way we can track it to anybody. It's just
Right.
the test, and they won't run it.
I think
Right.
it might be helpful if, Mary Ellen, there are some sort of recurring, I guess, like problems, like, oh, you know, you're putting today's date instead of the date of birth. If you could communicate that with either Greg or the principals, so that during some type of communication or a newsletter, it could just sort of be reiterated, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, and once that will be really helpful. And once we get the divided by schools, which is supposed to happen this way, that'll be easier to, you know, focus that message.
Perfect. Thank you. Joan.
I have a comment and then also a question. The first comment is Marie Allen, thank you so much. You've done an exceptional job. The medical advisory team, all of the nurses, beside the time that you're giving during the day. Not Marie Allen, I'm sorry, Mary Ellen. I got this mixed up here. Mary Ellen. Marie, I also thank you for everything that you're doing. But Mary Ellen, exceptional job. I mean, to think where we have come and how educated you've allowed us as school committee members, and through these forums, and for the people in the audience that are watching, your whole team has done an exceptional job. And I just really like to thank you for that. The time that you have spent during the day is compounded by the time that I'm sure that you're spending at night. As you say, the forum is going out live tonight at 10 o'clock. So my question to you was, I wanted to know if there was an update, but I guess everybody knows that on the vaccine clinic for the 5 to 11 age level children, how is that going to be run? And that form that's going live, is that on the district website?
Actually, the color form is linked to the town website. So that's people could sign up to get an email notification from the town. I have nothing to do with it. It's the Board of Health in each town who set up their websites and are hosting these clinics. So people could register to get an informational email to let them know when the clinics were going to be up and running. So this has been like everything at the last minute. You know, we had to wait for the ACIP to approve it, but we had already ordered vaccines, and the vaccines were shipped in hopes that everybody would get approval. So this was all like, and now the state had to get their registration set up for 5 to 11-year-olds, where it was set up for, you know, 16 and over before. So they had to add different things to their registration. So that's the registration that's going live, the one where you sign up for your appointment. The clinics are being held at Melican Middle School on Friday afternoon, 4 to 8 p.m. And then Saturday,
9 to 1.
8:30 to 12:30 or 9 to 1. I think it's 9 to 1. So that's where they're being set up this weekend. And then Southborough is the Wednesday before Veterans Day is their first clinic. I don't want to misspeak on the second dates, but then in another 3 weeks, we'll have repeat clinics for those. So, and anybody can sign up, go to either clinic. It's not like a Northborough, Southborough. It's a joint effort. So,
Okay,
I'll
thank
just
you.
I'll just add that we did send out a communication this past Friday for Northborough and Southborough community members around pre-registration information. They put a nice FAQ together. And if they go to our district webpage and look at the superintendent's update for this week, there's a link to that page.
And
I
also,
think-
the kids came home with flyers in their backpacks today, and you just scan the QR code. It brings you right to the registration, and we'll be able to sign up too.
So yeah, so Kristen, Kristen Black, the Board of Health agent, she went around to each school and delivered those, printed them out today when it got approved, and went and delivered them to every school. And I think the principals sent it out too in an email or a one call. So hopefully we'll get to everybody one way or another. So.
Erin, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Nope, all set.
Okay, great. And Kelly?
Do you know, Mary Ellen, how many vaccines Northborough and Southborough are getting?
I don't want to misspeak. I think Northborough got 300 and Southborough got 300 and Northborough may have gotten 600, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's what I heard, Mary Ellen. I think you're pretty close with that number.
All right.
So we're
Great.
partnering with Boylston also.
Okay.
And so the people that are there to be vaccinators or the MRC has been activated. Erin's going to be there with me this weekend, probably, vaccinating our kids. So it's a collaboration between like the fire department, the MRC of all three towns, Northborough, Southborough, and Boylston, staffing these clinics.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Erin, sorry, I just want to clarify, is your hand up again?
I do have sort of an unrelated question. I've had people asking me, do you have to be a Northborough or Southborough resident to come to these clinics? Or can anyone come?
Northborough, Southborough, or Boylston.
Okay, that's fine.
Great clarifying question. Thank you, Erin. And Mary Ellen, again, thank you for everything that you're doing, all the nurses. As Greg mentioned, this year is no easier, probably much harder than last year. And we really do recognize all the time and commitment that you and your team are putting in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on. Now that we're done with our new business, we're going to move on to old business. So we do have a food service update today. We're excited that Kyle Parson is here joining us this evening. Hi, Kyle. And I'm going to turn it over to Greg before we speak with Kyle.
Sure. So we thanked our school nurses, but also would like to thank Kyle Parson and his team for navigating a very difficult year in terms of managing food services. And Kyle did an outstanding job navigating that world. So I just want to thank Kyle and also thank him for his continued work this year, because like the nurses, this year is in some regards more difficult for our food services folks as well. So Keith and Kyle will be presenting some information about the food services program. And Keith, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Greg. Very excited. Kyle and I do get this opportunity to present to you an update on a couple of topics related to food services and kind of a little comparison to what we've done, comparing this year to last year to build some of that perspective. So, certainly appreciate Kyle and his time to be with me tonight, and we are going to tag team this presentation. So to begin, I'd like this screen to work. Okay, there we go. One overall and very general comment to make, and make sure we make this announcement crystal clear, is that we do have free school meals for all students for this entire school year. So this is a waiver that is now in place through June 30th of 2022. I will say that participation is up. It is up from what we experienced last year slightly, and certainly things have been quite steady in that regard. And what we're going to share a little bit about that is how we've had to adapt to those steady but increased numbers over our past, 3 to 5 years of experience. But one thing worth noting, there are residual benefits of the free meal program, and this is something that has been responded to throughout the state, is it does save families time and money. It does certainly boost revenue for the child's school, which is true, and we hope will continue to be true going forward. And it does break down some barriers where everyone is given a free lunch. It does allow that barrier to break down so that students that do qualify through low income statuses and other thing like that do not have a stigma at all. And we've worked really hard to reduce that over the years, but still that is something that existed. Now that is eradicated entirely, which has been beneficial and noticeable. So just a few of the logistics that you'll see in our cafeterias, if you have had the chance to pop in for lunchtime, is that we are still trying to mask as much as possible. And the only times that students are without mask is when they are consuming food while at their assigned seats, which is part of that. Distancing is obviously something that has come up recently. We are evaluating that. We started the year at 3 feet of distance, and now we're really looking at ways to get to 6 feet of distance in our cafeterias, hopefully, like Greg mentioned, for a temporary period of time. So Kyle and I are working with our facility staff and principals and lead teacher teams to see the feasibility on those issues and what needs to be done. Serving and packaging has certainly been something that we reviewed a lot since the beginning of the pandemic, how to do things more efficiently and safely. And Kyle's team has been able to really be creative in that. We've used a variety of different products to make that happen. And we've also used a variety of different strategies to get the food safely to our students. And really that credit is owed to our cafeteria managers at each of the buildings and the cafeteria workers who have given Kyle great advice along the way of certain things we should try or do. And each school has been very responsive in that regard. And one thing, actually, I'm going to turn this over to this last bullet. I want to turn over to Kyle around the breakfast and the integration of that into this school year. So Kyle, why don't you grab this one for a couple minutes?
One of the things we started to do was just kind of look at the way we service the kids and when they come in. So one thing we noticed is at Proctor, we had to do the lunch service. So we have a few kids that come in. They can either go out on the recess and or come in and eat breakfast. So we have like a group that comes in regularly. And I think once the weather gets a little colder, we'll get a few more on that. So it's like a small group. They're very close and they have a good time when they come in and eat with us. One of the things we also notice is that Melican, the way they come in off the bus and the way they kind of stage, we had an opportunity to kind of put out some breakfast to grab and go there for them. So we package it. We make them ourselves, and it's 2 credible grains, a fruit, and a juice or a milk. But we package it so the kids can grab it on their way into the building, or they can grab it and eat it outside in their staging area before they come into the building. So we have trash cans out there in case they do that. But I think what we're finding is that a lot of the kids really like to grab it and kind of put it in their backpack and kind of save it for later and actually snack on it either throughout the day or after school. So we're kind of finding it's just a great asset to those kids. And I know a lot of the kids have sports or other things that they have to go to. So it's a great way for them it's all shelf stable, which is a item that doesn't need to be refrigerated, and it travels well. So they're able to keep and hold on to it all day and eat it whenever available. We're finding just the kids really love it. It's doing great. We thought we were going to have some trash issues and things like that, and we didn't have anything. So it's doing well. We're kind of looking at maybe possibly doing it at some other schools. But again, a lot of it depends on the busing, the timing, and everything like that. But when we're finding we have that opportunity, we will take advantage of it.
Great, Kyle. Thank you. However, one of the pieces that I did want to mention is that we have had a couple of challenges. And certainly these are a lot of well-known national issues, and they do come to the boroughs. We aren't exempt from these things, and Kyle and his team has had to be incredibly creative around it. A few of the bulleted items you'll see here is that there is a food shortage. So we are finding that our access to, government commodities and other typically used items are just simply not available for us to procure. One of the major challenges that Kyle, we predicted this one, but we were hoping it would be a quick change, but it hasn't. It's been relatively consistent, is that our deliveries have been constrained through not bus driver shortage. That's my other presentation. Through delivery truck driver shortages and, just last minute changes to schedules for a variety of different reasons. And what it all culminates to, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, is typically what you would see is that menuing is done monthly. So you'd get the month of October up and you'd be able to put it on the refrigerator or, save it on your desktop, however, your family chose to do that. Now, because of these challenges, we've had to do 2-week menuing. So what you'll see is that Kyle is doing these postings every 2 weeks. And that is solely because of the unpredictability of that, of the delivery and the food items that we're able to get. So these are things that, we tried to avoid, but we thought it was best to do that. And we'll be communicating that out more and more. And this is the first month we've had to do that and experiment with it. And so far, it's really helped us be a lot more consistent. And then therefore, we don't have to be changing our menu items and making those types of announcements, which has really benefited our nurses, certainly our students with allergies and our families that are trying to prepare as much as possible. So if they can bear with us through this challenge, and that 2-week menuing looks like it's here to stay, at least for, foreseeable future. And the other thing, and Kyle's going to share an example of this, is we get some unexpected replacement items. So we were expecting, let's say, 10 cases of chicken nuggets, and it wind up being 5 cases of chicken nuggets and 5 cases of chicken tenders. That might seem small, but it does have to then adjust how we do our menuing. And that's a part of what Kyle is, gonna share next. So Kyle, can you share about this and this differentiation that we had to make?
Sure. So this is just an example of the salad on the right was Southborough, salad on the left was Northborough, and this was the same week. So I wanted to show this because we get our deliveries on 2 different days in the 2 different towns. We were trying to menu the 2 menus the same to make it a little bit more consistent between the 2 towns. But this year we actually decided to separate from each other and kind of go our different paths in each district. That way we would have less of a strain on our food providers for all of the products. Instead of ordering 20 cases of chicken nuggets, we'd only be ordering 10, and then the following week, maybe 10 in the other town. So one of the things we're having is that because we get that, we're getting real inconsistent product. So our lettuce will come in nice to one town on Wednesday. Then unfortunately on Friday, it may come in and be frozen. So this is actually what happened. So Southborough was able to have what she had menued. The other salad on the left was what we had to do in Northborough. The lettuce came in frozen. We couldn't use it. So my staff was able to quickly shift into making like a caprese salad. So we used the government commodity cheese, mozzarella, cubed it up, put in some fresh basil, seasoned it, a little bit of oil and a little vinegar and salt and pepper, and then they made like a caprese salad. So these are our constant challenges, and luckily my staff is very good about if they have a problem, they just immediately shift into what can we do to fix it. When we know about this, it creates a lot of other issues for us. We have to make an announcement. We have to get nursing involved because we work with them every morning to worry about kids with our allergies. So everyone has to be very flexible and open that communication up early so that we can identify any students that may have an allergy to a new product that we may have. So it kind of, the little things are what's driving us crazy right now. But this is an effort of what my staff does and shows what they do and how much they care. So
great point, Kyle. And then lastly, this is just 2 other menu items, and the one on the left has an interesting story to it and just speaks to the level of commitment that the staff will have to make sure we are doing things fairly and appropriately for our students. So Kyle, can you share about the French bread pizza on the left, please?
Right. So on the left there, that's a French bread pizza from 2 different manufacturers. They're both meet the nutritional requirements that we are looking for. They both have two credible protein or meat alternates, the cheese, and they both have two whole grain rich portions of bread. So we order 10 cases because that's what we need for the 5 schools, and we'll maybe get 4 and 6. So one school will get all of the one on the right, which is a little bit looks smaller, but it's actually the same size. But unfortunately, this was actually at Lincoln Street. So Lincoln Street had to get 2 cases, and they were both different. That's just the way it worked out. So what we did is my staff looks at this and says, okay, we know it's a credible portion. Every kid's going to be the same. But if we serve, they have like kindergarten and 4th grade come in at the same time and have lunch together. If we were served that separately or differently, one kid might look at it, what another kid had the next row over and say, hey, this pizza's different. So what my staff does is they kind of go into a mode of, okay, first lunch is going to get pizza A and second lunch is going to get pizza B, so that the kids don't see the difference. So, and it's a little bit more effort to trade up and to count it and to work on things like that. So another challenge that they overcome every day, just to make sure that the product looks consistent so that the students don't notice the difference. But again, this goes into, the allergen issues. These 2 products are the same allergen wise, but it just highlights the challenges that we face with the difficulty of product that we're having with our vendors. The product on the right is a chef salad. So what we've done is we've generalized a lot of our menus just because we don't know exactly what we're going to get until we actually get it. We order turkey for slicing for the salads. That's a chef salad there. The turkey may not come in, but we may have ham and salami, but we can still make that a chef salad. The following week, we may not get salami, we maybe get ham and turkey. So that's why we're having a lot of general menu selections. And then what we do is when we know what we have, we make that announcement in the morning. So that's how we communicate with the students. The menu, the 2-week menu, that's another thing we're trying to do to try to change that. With some of the changes we have coming up, we're going to change the menu actually to help service some of our schools because of the challenges we have of serving with where they may be eating lunch now. So that's why we've done that. Kudos to my staff. They roll with the punches. They communicate with each other. I need 15 of this. I need 12 of that, just because there's no excess anymore with products. So we used to order, when we needed 9 cases, we'd order 10 cases. We just don't have that luxury anymore. So that's just a great example of the effort my staff puts into putting out a lunch on a daily basis.
And the good thing overall, and it has not interrupted our service at all. We are still able to provide a lot of the variety there. I think we'd like to do a lot more, but with constraints, we're trying to balance that all out to make sure that we can do that delivering every day. So, Kyle, thank you to your team for their creativity, and we would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Kelly, I see your hand raised.
Sorry, I had to switch to earphones versus earbuds. I don't know. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I rose my hand and I was laughing. I don't know if you saw me during that with the pizza thing, because so my little one just started, she'll like buy lunches now. She'll be like, oh, I want to get lunch. And so she'll order the lunch and stuff. And that was one of the things she was trying to describe to me about the pizza, is the shape of the pizza. And she's like, it's not like round, but it's not like oval. It's like, I don't know. It's like, it's oval, but it's squished and so now that I see it, I bet we were ones that got one of those types of shapes. But
now you know exactly what she was talking about.
And now I know what she's talking about. So yeah. I grabbed a screen grab, so I'm going to show her tomorrow. She's going to love that. But the other thing I just wanted to tell you is that I heard from a friend who has a middle schooler. So I think they're in 6th grade now, and the mom told me, they're like, the food at Milliken is amazing. It's so good. Oh my. So they were raving about it and they loved it. So I just wanted to say that's a kudos to you guys and doing the food and stuff like that. So I know it's hard. It's hard to get my kids don't eat anything. So it's hard to get any kids to eat. But when you hear like a review from a kid saying it's great, like, you know, you're doing something right.
That's
So,
great to hear. And I know Kyle will share that with his staff at Milliken, but there's no competition at all. We'll erase that part of it.
Thank you, Kelly. Joan?
And Lauren, the first question I have is for Keith. Just for my own personal education, what is the federal law or the act that they instituted that allows us to give these free lunches starting last year and continuing all the way until June of 2022?
So the USDA is the one that's able to direct that, and they run the National School Lunch Program. And in these particular programs have a variety of different layers and stuff, but typically we are on a kind of very basic level. What they did is they allowed us to participate in what is called a seamless option, which would have made food available throughout the entire year for a community. And that's something you have to kind of apply for. That's what the waiver allowed us to do. So all communities, if they, and all did basically from what I've gathered, have applied for this option, which allows them to exercise that waiver and get that federal reimbursement per meal that is promised through the USDA program. Becky, is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, and I believe that they did issue that nationwide, not just in Massachusetts, that
Right.
free meals are free nationwide for this school year.
It's nationwide.
And when you're saying that meals are free, is this meals just for the students, or would this also be offered to staff members, custodians, nurses, teachers?
Just for our students, Joan.
Just for the students.
Correct.
Okay, I think it's a great program. I love the grab and go because I know that everyone who is here tonight knows that they talk about kids coming hungry to school, and it will have an effect on their learning because their stomach is growling. So I really am very impressed by that grab and go. I hope that we could get it into the other schools. How have the numbers progressed on that grab and go? Have you seen them increasing at a good rate?
I thought it came out of the gate probably around 100, right around 200, and I think he's averaging about 160, 170 a day right now. So it stayed pretty consistent. Proctor stayed about the same. You know, she'll do a high of maybe 20. It averages right around 15 to 16 right now. And like I said, that will fluctuate depending on the weather. The kids want to go out and play instead of come in and have breakfast. And I think once they come in, she'll probably average around 20 again. So a lot of things kind of ebb and flow with the weather and how many kids are in and how many kids are out. You know, if cold season comes in, that number drops also too. So, but you know,
Okay.
I think it stays pretty consistent.
Now, I know at the middle school, when they would have, some of the kids would be able to buy an extra second helping if there was some left at the end of the lunch period. Is that still being offered? Let's say, is that being offered that if the kids, they can come
Yes.
back if they're hungry for a second helping?
Right. Unfortunately, that is not free. That is the federal government only allows the first meal to be a reimbursable meal. The second meal they have to purchase. So that's $3 if they want a second meal. But we also do sell some a la carte snacks. And sometimes when we do have pizza, we'll just sell the pizza by itself and not a whole meal because there's a few kids that do partake in that.
Well, Kyle, thank you very much as
You're
the
welcome.
food service director for the K-8 schools. And
Yes.
I'd really like to thank you for that. And please give our thanks to all of your staff, because from what you're saying and how the science behind and the mathematics to know about, we're going to give this size pizza to lunch one and then the smaller ones to lunch so they can't compare it. I would say your staff is like Julia Child. I could see them doing that and just coming up and mixing things around. So please thank them for their diligence. At
I
this
will. My staff is fabulous. We've had issues with paper products and just everything. One day we can get what's called a 5-pound boat, and we put food in it. And it's something like if you go to the beach and you get like a fried clam plate, it comes in a 5-pound boat. We couldn't get 5-pound, went to a 3-pound boat. Now it's a 2.5-pound boat. So now I can't get those boats at all. So we've gone to plastic trays So it's like, it's just constant evolution, and my staff is just always like, oh, well, if I stack it this way inside the boat, it all fits. Whereas before you could just kind of throw it in. So they're very creative. They really roll with the punches. They do a great job. They care about the kids. And we still batch cook our food so that it comes out hot out of the oven, because we know it may sit out a little bit longer. So we're doing everything we can to make sure that it's hot for them. We still try to make it look good. It's a constant battle, but they do a fabulous job, and they come to work every day and they don't complain, and they're just a fabulous group.
Well, like I said, they're fabulous, just like Julia Child was. Just the way she would do with the copper pots and things wouldn't work, she'd throw it underneath the kitchen thing that she was standing by. So please thank them, and thanks to you. And Keith, thank you for answering all my questions. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
And thank you very much, Kyle. I know we had a lot of questions about the food supply chain as well as grab and go last month, and we're happy that you were able to join us this month. So thank you very much, Kyle. And of course.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.
We're just excited to see what, when the food supply chains return to normal, the creativity that can come out of the cafeteria. So thank you, Kyle.
Not a problem.
Have a good night.
You too.
So our next order of old business is school start time and busing update. So I'll turn it over to Greg, and then I believe Keith will be speaking on this as well.
Yes, so with it being November 3rd, we are well into the school year with our transportation changes, and Keith will provide a brief update on what we're seeing and what the next potential steps are to continue to improve.
Yes, thanks, Greg. And I appreciate this opportunity to provide you with another update. It has certainly been a busy month in transportation. We've made some adjustments to how things are operating, and we're seeing some very positive things, but the work will continue. So one thing I did want to remind everyone that on October 18th, we made the adjustment of 5 minutes. 5 minutes earlier at the Milliken Middle School and 5 minutes later at all 4 of the elementary schools. And overall, we are extremely satisfied with the adjustment and what that did. The shift did correct many of the timing issues that existed and for vast majority of our buses. And I do want to thank the principals for making that transition seamless. You would think that 5 minutes isn't a big deal, but it really is. And we want to make sure that we captured that as best we could. And for, many of our families, we did hear that, this was beneficial. I got many of those calls, but I did get a few phone calls that said that 5 minutes did hurt them and did impact them negatively. And I've talked it through with a number of parents to, provide some advice and assistance, and it was good information to collect. So certainly that 5 minutes, we can't understate that does have an impact, and we want to make sure it was for the positive for as many people as possible. So I did get a very general report that adjustment has gone smooth. We're 2 weeks in, and that adjustment has had a positive impact on the overall operation. The other thing that was launched in this past month is the new bus tracking app, Where Is My Kid? And for a brand new application, and just to remind the committee, and I don't know if I had this information by the time our meeting, I know I told Southborough in the region, but I didn't realize this. We are the first school district to use this application. This was purchased by NRT. They are the ones that operate it and help develop it. And we were the first school district to actually put it into practice. And so far, so good. That, it doesn't mean it's not coming with some glitches, but I would say that the responsiveness to even simple and more complex questions has been swift, and we've been partnering them with them pretty closely. And so what I'm looking forward to getting information about, which I don't have readily available, is the amount of usership we do have, how many parents are using the app. That's something I'm hoping to gather from the committee and the developers, and then what types of adjustments they have made based on our feedback. Those are reports I'd like to get from them on a monthly basis as we go through our start time implementation. So those are the things that have created some adjustments. The next step, and we knew we were going to start doing this, especially after the adjustment of the 5 minutes, is really dig deeper into our roots for efficiencies that can be gained. And right now we are focusing on approximately one bus per school that we are not happy with its performance, especially in the afternoon. And we're trying to figure out why. For example, there was one bus at at Peasley that was consistently between 25 and 30 minutes after the dismissal time. And that was just problematic and not something that we were happy with at all. So we really wanted to investigate what happened. And I'm happy to say that we collaborated with the drivers, we connected with NRT, and Jean Pinto, our transportation assistant, has put in a remedy for that. And we're hoping that that makes the difference so that that one bus can now be, as little as 15 minutes after dismissal, which is absolutely the goal of where we want to be. So the hope is that that will continue. Like I mentioned, we do have a couple of buses that we're looking at closely, but each of them does require a deep investigation to try to review, so we don't undo all the good things that is working, and it's genuinely a collaboration. So that is part of the efficiency gains that we want to make. The other areas of analysis and exploration we're doing is there are two major initiatives for that. The first is that we are exploring whether or not our buses can drop off Melican students on their way to Algonquin. Now the differential between the end time at Melican being 2:10 and the end time at Algonquin is 2:30. What can we do with that 20 minutes? Or it becomes more like 15 minutes once things are dismissed, but what can we gain there? So as you can imagine, Northborough is not necessarily a small town, and it's not necessarily direct routes here and there, but we do believe that we might be able to get a large number of Melican students home prior to getting to Algonquin. The problem is we don't want that change of time to undo or make worse the buses getting later to the elementary schools that follow. So we want to make sure that whatever we do in that time and the time that we've gained will be beneficial to everyone, not just a few. And that's constantly the process we've got to follow. Yes, that sounds like a great idea. Well, it undoes all these 5 things that are good. The larger project that could potentially have a greater disruption is whether or not it's feasible to split the Melican and Algonquin buses in the afternoon. Everything is working well in the morning. We're really happy with the morning. Things are timing well. Things have settled in, certainly with the 5-minute adjustment, but we are exploring whether or not it is feasible and beneficial to split those routes. And what I mean by that is that we have 17 buses in Northborough. Can we go ahead and assign 10 buses to Melican and 7 buses to Algonquin for their afternoon routes? And will that, maintain proper capacity numbers? Will the routes work, and how will they work? It is just a much more intensive process that would require a lot more work and thought to be able to do. But I do feel it requires a full investigation on our part to see if that's feasible, because it would be great if we could do that and do it well and still maintain our dismissal times in a proper way. So those are the two major, things that we're working on. I think we are in a very good space considering the large change that the start time was. The data is continuously being reviewed. And like I mentioned, small adjustments are being made and larger changes are being investigated. So I'm pretty happy with where we are now. I'm getting positive feedback, but it doesn't mean I'm not getting negative feedback as well. And it continues to be a good partnership as we go through this process. So certainly I'm happy to answer any questions or talk more specifically about our plans or things that we have done.
Thank you, Keith, for that update. We're going to move on to some questions and discussion. So Kelly, let's start with you.
Thank you. So I wanted to start by saying that the 5-minute adjust time, I agree with you. I heard from friends whose kids, just by that 5-minute PM change, they're getting home. The kids are getting home 20 minutes early. So, it's just that, they're getting home later than they did last year, but still they're getting home 20 minutes early just by having that 5 minutes later, which is amazing how that was able to work out for you guys. So that's great. If we in the investigation for the exploration for the, if you split the buses in the PM,
Mhm.
would that then impact the reimbursement from the state because it's not then funneling through the high school, or no?
Great
All-
question, Kelly. Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
So all 32 buses go to the high school in the morning.
Okay, so that would,
is-
that covers it. Oh, that's good. That's good.
They,
So then that's
they all touch 79 Bartlett Street.
perfect. So does an Amazon. Sorry. Susie would appreciate that joke. Anyway, the thing that I was asking, I asked Lauren about, and something is the ridership. Somebody mentioned to me that their kid, one of my friends has a kid who's, 2 to 3 to a seat, some, and I know some of the routes are still shared buses. So that could be, maybe they're one of the buses that has like a double ride or something like that. The other friend was saying that her kid in middle school, there's only like 12 kids on her bus, So I was wondering, is there a way that we can find out as a school committee how many kids are riding on the buses, on each of the buses, like, to know, like, for the things? I know it would probably, I don't know, like, do the bus drivers have like amount of kids they're supposed to have on the buses, like a list that they can just like tick off, like, or something, or is it something like you have to be like on the bus, somebody, or the principals has to like be there and check it off, counting as they get off? I don't know.
It doesn't have the technological benefits as we hope. A lot of it's being done just simply like by a list that you're checking off, or simply counting the number of kids that get on and off. So it's not exact. I would say that it's also not consistent. There are some days where you could have 10 kids on that bus, and then the next day there's 20, especially at the middle and high school with the variety of activities that are happening. We are seeing that fluctuate. For the buses that are, what we're hearing from NRT, and we are getting this from the driver, is that yes, there are some buses that are full, but they are not over capacity. So what we're keeping them at is making sure that those numbers are reasonable, and really collaborating with the drivers that if they feel like, that capacity is fluctuating too great, we've talked about, moving a stop or two to another bus to kind of balance it out a little bit. But I would say that ridership is such an important piece of information to gather. And we are planning to do another round of that. We did about 3 weeks of ridership and saw some consistent participation with that, which also was similar to prior years. So it felt like it was all working out and pretty reasonable compared to prior data that we've had. But I think, once this 5 minutes settles in, now we're switching to a different season of high school sports. It's going to be another, and the weather's getting colder. What type of impact will that have on ridership? So I think the ridership collection data is going to be ongoing and something we've got to continue to analyze.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for your questions, Kelly. Erin?
So I guess, I know you touched upon splitting up the buses. I guess, where are you in that planning or investigating stage? I know a lot of families are seeing a big difference when Melican has half days, and that's making it very obvious how much Algonquin kind of disrupts their bus route. I know Melican had some half days last week, and families are reporting that their kids spent 30 plus minutes less on the bus on those half days. So they're really blaming, having to stop at Algonquin and pick those kids up and finish the route. That's 30 minutes every day that the kids are spending on the bus, that in their minds is that really necessary? Where are we at trying to split these up? I think people are also catching wind that we've split them in Southborough. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Kind of like, how come they got to do it and we're not doing it? And so where do we kind of stand at looking at that option and the possibility of that?
So the like I mentioned before, it certainly is very complex because we do have to make sure we are within the capacity amounts, obviously, and the routing of those would be a complete new set of routes. So one thing that we have found in Southborough is that, yes, the buses are split, but those routes are longer because now geographically, instead of having 17 buses to go over the town of Northborough, you now have 10, or maybe in the case of Algonquin, you have 7. So that delta of 30 minutes definitely would not happen if we only had 7 buses to work with at Algonquin or 10 buses to work with at Melican. So maybe that delta might be less by, maybe, 15 minutes or so at most. I think that one of the other variables is that it's not something we can just kind of set and forget. We also have to think that over the years, the routes have to be adjusted. And anytime there is a new system, you want to make sure that you've understood how that system's working so you can route it correctly. The worst thing I'd want to do is rush into making that change and then say, wait a minute, that's not going to work next year because, and then have reasons for that. We want to make sure that the system can be maintained. Greg?
Keith, can I just add a couple comments? So I just want to echo, it is a significant change. It's rerouting, it's creating new bus stops. I mean, not bus stops, but new buses for kids. So it's a big change. What we're fairly confident about is that between Algonquin and Melican, on the way back from Melican back to Algonquin, being able to drop off students, we think that will actually yield some time saving in terms of the runs at the elementary level. That is something we can do fairly easily compared to splitting the buses. So that's our next move that we're going to make. And we're confident that will yield us the time we need. The other major shift too is, Keith mentioned this, is ridership at Algonquin. What we see every year is greater ridership in the month of September as we launch the school year, as our sophomores and juniors get their licenses, as students make friends, they carpool more, and ridership really decreases. We're seeing that pattern this year too. And Keith and Jean are really looking at that ridership to see if there's any other solutions that we haven't thought of because of low ridership at Algonquin at this point in time.
Thank you. Erin, did you have any follow-up questions?
I don't think so. I think, Kelly, it was interesting to hear you say that you're seeing earlier arrivals. I don't know if we just haven't seen the effects yet at Peaslee, or, people I've talked to are pretty much reporting that the kids are coming home about the same time. For my kids, it's about 4:00. And I think just in general, people, this is maybe just the new norm, and people are having a hard time adjusting to that, and adjusting, the fact that school is a mile away and it takes 35 to 40 minutes to get home. It's just new, and it's an adjustment. And I think people are struggling with this, maybe the new norm. And do we want this to be the new norm? Is that a lot? I think compared to last year when our kids got home, my kids got home at 3:35 last year. It was, less than 15 minutes from dismissal. And, now it's 4:00. And so I guess,
you know what, Erin, I'm wondering if the 5-minute difference was also, maybe it was on the day that Melican had a half day. And maybe that was the 20-minute difference.
Maybe.
Now that you just said that, maybe I don't know. But I know that I noticed that they said that the 5 minutes did affect it. There was an effect, but
yeah,
maybe that was the day of the half day that parents were also saying that they noticed the difference between the way that the routes are and stuff. But I mean,
yeah, I think the other thing that's important is that, this was a community challenge. How do we make the shift that, for our Northborough Elementary parents and Southborough Elementary parents, they might feel a little bit of a longer ride. But eventually, as kids travel through their educational experience in our community, they're going to benefit from that 8 o'clock start time at the high school too. So, I think I'm confident we'll get there. I think We have seen improvements with it. It's a 10-minute change with milk and time change, and then as well as elementary school. And we do have data to support that kids are being picked up at our elementary schools sooner, and therefore riding the bus less. So that data is positive, but we do have a few buses, as Keith mentioned, that we need to look at and improve.
Thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
Thank you. If so, those cases, Greg, that you're talking about, and Keith, you had mentioned maybe there's 1 or 2 buses at each school that are still having problems. If families themselves are feeling frustrated with these longer ride times, should they continue to reach out to you, Keith?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that obviously things have slowed down since the beginning of the year, and the responses that I'm getting now are, 50% very positive and thankful and grateful, and the other half have an issue, and it's very similar to what Aaron described. I feel that a lot of those phone calls, and once we have the opportunity to kind of explain it and certainly inform them of, what we're trying to accomplish, people have been incredibly patient. And then we've also identified things that are easy changes that make the difference of 10 minutes that we didn't think of. So it has genuinely been good to get some of that feedback, and I would welcome that.
Great. Thank you so much, Keith. All right, Keith, thank you very much. We're going to move on now to agenda item D. So superintendent's report to the committee, and we're going to start with enrollments. Greg, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Sure. So in your packet is the enrollment data for October 22nd. And we saw an increase of 2 students from our September report. And we are 4 students short of NASDAQ projections, which is actually fairly accurate. And also in your packet is the October 1 enrollment report, which again is an important report because it is used to calculate our Chapter 70 reimbursement from the state. So I'd be happy to answer any questions around enrollment.
Thank you. Any questions regarding enrollment at this time? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to the monthly general fund expenditure report for FY22.
Sure. So the next 2 items on the agenda, Becky Pellegrino will share. I will add that the grant review, this is a new practice for the school committee to approve the grants that we receive on an annual basis. So Becky will be sharing the grants as well. And both of the items will require a vote, the monthly general fund expenditure report and approval of the grants. And I'll turn it over to Becky.
Hi, everyone. So the monthly general fund report as of October 31st is included in your packet. As you can see, we had $522,947 remaining, or 2.3% remaining on the bottom line of the FY22 budget. In comparison, at this time last year, we had $757,759, or 3.01% remaining. So we are carefully monitoring the Northborough operational budget, as we have had some unanticipated expenses that have occurred during the first few months of the 2021-2022 school year. We are also anticipating that 2 additional students will be placed out of district at collaborative schools within the next few weeks. Out of an abundance of caution, we have frozen the FY22 budget for Northborough. My team and I are reviewing expenditures to identify any expenses that can be moved onto our grants or our revolving funds. I've also been in touch with the town to find out about some certain costs that may be eligible for reimbursement with FEMA that are currently under our operational budget. We're not sounding the alarm at this time. We're just proceeding cautiously and carefully especially with 8 months remaining in the fiscal year. And I just do want to point out that many of our major expenses have already been encumbered and are included in this budget. Most importantly, the salaries for our staff are included in this budget. But we are, again, as I said, just acting cautiously and freezing this, and then hope to have more of an update for you at next month's meeting once we've had the chance to really dive in to see if we can move some funds. So at this time, I'd welcome any questions regarding the budget.
Thank you, Becky. Kelly?
Is this one of the earliest we've ever frozen a budget? It seems really early to me. Usually you hear it in the springtime, but I mean, we haven't even gotten to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it is early,
Yeah.
but again, like I said, with 8 months remaining, when we sat down and we talked and we looked at some of the expenses that we are anticipating over the next few weeks, we really wanted to put a freeze, and we may lift that freeze. As I said, as we go through and we look and we see, okay, maybe we can move this onto one of our ESSER grants, or maybe something that we had planned does not come to fruition or isn't needed. It may change our outlook. But right now we wanted to do it before it got too late into the year.
Yeah. Is it because we're approaching budget season now, we're starting to look at it. Is there anything that you can see that, and as I said, it might just be a matter of like, all the big expenses we've done it and that's why we're off. And after a couple months, it levels off and things will be fine. But is there anything that you could see that's going to potentially like come up as whether it be surprising to us or
so the major things that I've really seen in this year's budget, there are a few things, obviously with Proctor and the mold mitigation measures, we've had some expenses that we've had to incur as a result of that. The other thing is we continue to have storage containers at each of our schools, which is housing all of that extra equipment so that we can have the social distancing in the classrooms and in the cafeterias. And last year we were able to utilize the CVRF grant. So that's one of the areas that I've reached out to the town to see if FEMA might reimburse for those funds. And with the special education costs, Marie and I are in constant communication on those costs. And now that we do know some of these tuitions, we are able to plan for those in the FY23 budget. But I will say, I think Marie can certainly speak to this, that we've seen a number of students who have moved into the district that were not anticipated when we built the FY22 budget.
Becky, I'll just also share that when you look at, from month to month, and you do a comparison, to this time last year, and as you move in the outward months of December, January, the percent decrease in the budget stabilizes significantly. So as Becky shared, I think we are, when we look at the historical baselines where we we're right around where we were in prior years. However, if there's one, student who requires, specialized services outside of our district, that's a significant amount. So as Becky shared, we're just being very cautious. And I'll just also share that the finance team has done a great job encumbering. Each year they get better at encumbering expenses to really look at the bottom line. So it really projects out all of our expenses that are known. So I think the finance team has done a great job. And I think in prior years, I think not all the funds have been encumbered. So it always hasn't been as an accurate bottom line as it is this year.
Thank you. Joan?
Yes, if it is the time, I like to make the motion. So I'd like to make.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to make the motion that we approve until audited the Northborough Public School District's FY 2022 budget monthly general fund expenditure report as of October 31st, 2021.
Great. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Erin.
Thank you, Erin. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, this will be a roll call vote. Joan,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and myself, Lauren, is a yes. So the monthly general fund expenditure report till audited has passed. So that brings us to our next agenda item, which is our grant review.
And Greg, can you make me a co-host so I can share my screen?
All set.
Thank you. Okay. Everything's going slowly tonight, sorry. All right. So we have spoken about ESSER quite a bit over the past 12 months. And just to remind everyone that ESSER does stand for the Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief. And we have seen 3 different variations or iterations, I guess, of ESSER funds that have come out. The first was ESSER, and it was just ESSER when it first came out, but now it's known as ESSER 1. And that was released about a year ago. And you can see that we did receive $41,057 in ESSER 1 funds. One important distinction on this grant is that we were required to allocate a certain amount of funds for private schools that were within the boundaries of our town. And so out of that money, $8,400 was set aside for private school use. The remaining amount was utilized by the district, and I can tell you that we have utilized all of those funds, and we have purchased Chromebooks utilizing the ESSER 1 funds. This grant was set to expire at the end of FY22, but we have already utilized all of the funds in that grant. The ESSER 2 grant is a total of $165,518. In ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, the funds are spread into 3 categories, and those are stipends, contractual services, and supplies and materials. And you can see in the ESSER 2 under stipends and contractual services, really that a lot of our work that we've been doing around equity, some certain assessment tools, and then also tutoring services are being covered through the ESSER 2. So Joan, the World of Difference work that Michelle Karb spoke about is something that is being funded through the ESSER 2, grants. We have also included additional money for student and teacher devices and an SEL and also a math screening tool. So ESSER 2 does come to a close at the end of FY23. So we would have until September 30th, 2023 to expend these funds. And I've just provided the committee with a total of what has been expended year to date so far on ESSER 2, and that is $43,000. The ESSER 3, and I'm proud to say that as of today, this grant was approved by DESE. They've been a little behind in their grant approval. This was submitted to them at the beginning of October. So we are all set to go with our ESSER 3 grant. You'll see a number of the same items that we did budget for in ESSER 2. However, there is one distinction with ESSER 3. We did need to reserve 20% of these funds, or the equivalent of $69,903, to combat the loss of instructional time and learning loss. So really the tutoring program that we initially identified in ESSER 2 will be continued utilizing these funds to address that item. You'll also notice that we have included funds for the development and the implementation of an executive functioning curriculum. We are in the process of researching the purchase and implementation of SEL and health curriculum. So there are funds that are included in that for the curriculum, and then also the professional development that goes along with those two curriculums. And then finally, we have included funds to equip some of our classrooms with amplification systems. We did hear in the some of the community members had mentioned that their students were having difficulty hearing the teachers while they had masks on. And so this amplification system will assist in that. And it's also a great tool to use even without masks, so that all students are able to hear evenly. We will need to publish our plans on how we will expend these funds. This is the overview of what we did submit, but we will be publishing our plans, and that will go out on the district website within the next 30 days as required by the grant. And the ESSER 3 grant, we have until the end of FY24 to expend those funds. Are there any questions on ESSER? No. So what I'd like to do is move into the grants. As Greg indicated, this is really the first time that we have presented the committee with a complete picture of the grants that we have received. All of our grants are federal grants. However, in years past, we have received state-based grants as well. There are entitlement and competitive grants that are included in this document. Entitlement grants are non-competitive and are awarded automatically on the basis of a predefined formula. Competitive grants are just what they sound like. They are merit-based applications that are awarded to the districts that best fulfill the grant requirements. So the report in your packet shows the total amount of federal grant funds that we are receiving in fiscal year 22. And as you can see, Northborough Public Schools received $1,381,572 in grant funding. Some of our grants are applied for with the region and or Southborough. Those grants are the IDEA Special Education and Early Childhood Special Education grants, Title I, II, III, and IV. The majority of our grants are entitlement grants. However, we are the recipient of competitive grants, and those are the FY22 Summer School Expansion and Engagement grants, and the Early Literacy Screening Assessment and Professional Development grants that Stephanie Reinhorn had written for the district. We are recommending that the school committee vote to accept these grant funds as they play an important role in the overall financing of public education in Northborough. And I am happy to answer any questions that you might have on this grant document.
Yes, Joan, thank you.
Question for Rebecca. Do you, when we make the motion, is it beside the federal grant totals, is it also the ESSER 1, 2, and 3?
That is included in this grant document.
But I mean, when we make the motion, we do it for ESSER 1, 2, and 3, and then also the federal grant total?
Yeah, I actually have a recommended motion that I had prepared that I will include all of that. Oh, I'm doing the wrong. Because the ESSER 1, 2, and actually the ESSER 2 and 3 are included on that document. So it is part of the federal grant money that I've outlined.
Okay. Therefore, I would like to recommend and I move that the committee accept all FY22 grant funds noted in the enclosed chart and use such funds for their intended purpose.
I'll second. Any discussion on these grants that Becky has presented to us tonight? I have a question. So Becky, are there any areas that you feel like either educators or admin sort of are looking to have more funds for that our ESSER grant couldn't really fulfill? I mean, I guess we always want more money, but was there, was there like one specific area maybe where we just
Becky,
couldn't really fill that request?
Yeah, Becky, I can share a couple items too. I think one of the requests we received were to fund positions. And our approach as a district is not to create future liabilities using these grants, because these grants will go away. So I would say that some of the positions that were requested are not included in this grant allocation that we have, but that's by design and intentional. So we're looking at our budget process to think about those positions and whether they can be funded in operational budget as we look toward fiscal year 23.
Okay, thank you. Kelly?
Thanks. Just quickly, so for example, the classroom amplification, I think it was on the ESSER 2 or the 3 one? I can't remember. I think it was maybe the 3. So something like that, I know we have until September 24 to use these funds. When is the expectation of purchasing or utilizing those funds that you allocated for all the different things in the ESSER 2 and the ESSER 3? Like, when is there a time frame that we have for that? I know we have to spend the funds by the end of the thing, but I didn't know what the time frame is internally.
So there are certain things in here that obviously would be classroom amplification systems. Those would be things that we would want to start to work on right away. With the curriculum materials, and Stephanie and Greg, feel free to jump in. We do have committees right now who are formed, who are looking at those materials, and will be coming up with recommendations. If you noticed in ESSER 2, we had assessment tools. So we're really starting to start that process. And then we will implement the curriculum once we've gone through the committee work and done the assessments that are needed. And with the tutoring, since we did have it built into both 2 and 3, it is something that we will be able to, and I know Stephanie and Greg and I have been having many conversations about what does the tutoring program look like and how can we implement that over time, and in order to satisfy the needs of the students.
Great.
Becky, I'll just add that we are taking a measured approach to expending this funding. As we enter into the fiscal year 23 budget process. We want to get a good sense of where we are in terms of our operational budget, because we can amend this grant. And although we think we need amplification systems, if it's a really difficult fiscal year 23, we can then look to purchase other technology that we might have purchased in the operational budget. So we're trying not to be too quick in the expenditures and really think about how do we spend this money over 2 years in terms of time.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, so we have a motion on the table to accept the grant funds as presented tonight for their intended purposes, and it was seconded. So this will be a roll call vote. Joan?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And myself, Lauren, is a yes, so that passes unanimously. Becky, thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for all those helpful charts. You really break it down in a very easy to digest manner. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And can I just make a comment around the writing the grants? So a lot of effort goes into, authoring and thinking about, the expenditures for grants. So Stephanie and Marie Allen and Becky and everyone involved in the grant writing process, it is in Rhoda, it takes a lot of time. And if you like forms, grant is your bailiwick. So there's no shortage of paperwork. So I just want to thank Stephanie, Marie, Becky, and Rhoda for doing the work.
Susie Sislicka always says that she loves grant writing. So if you're looking for extra help.
Thank you so much. So that brings us to our next agenda item, which is our capital plan update. Greg.
Sure. So the last meeting, we presented kind of the draft of the capital plan. The capital planning subcommittee did meet and provide some feedback and input. And as a result, in your packet is the proposed capital plan that we'd like to move forward with. And I'll just highlight the larger project that we identified as a priority project. And that is really roof replacement at the Proctor Elementary School. So in terms of hub testing and doing an analysis of some of the humidity issues that we're having at Proctor, it was discovered that the Proctor flat roof is in need of repair. The pitched roof was replaced 4 years ago in partnership with the town. So our intention is to move forward with the Proctor flat roof replacement as the priority project. And Keith will be working on submitting a statement of interest through MSBA's Accelerated Repair Project. And we'll also be partnering with the town and John Kadera in terms of moving this project forward. So that is the update in terms of the capital plan from the last time we discussed the plan. Keith, is there anything else that you would like to highlight in FY23?
No, I think that is obviously the major. We really engaged in some really good conversation with Bud Richardson and the principals around the items. We enhanced our maintenance and repair schedule that kind of goes along with our capital plan. So those items are being addressed and are outlined as we're able to do that. But the capital plan, I agree with Greg. The focus will be the Proctor roof and the flat portion of that. So when you do go to Proctor, there are pitch portions that have been replaced within the past 5 years, but the flat roof was not touched during that replacement. And that's the area that we need to, in the largest amount of square footage. And then we need to take care of that as soon as possible.
Thank you for the update. Any questions or comments? All right, we're going to move on to our next agenda item.
Sorry,
yes.
Lauren, just if we could vote the capital plan.
Oh, absolutely.
Matter of procedure.
Absolutely. Yes, so we're looking for a vote to approve the capital plan as presented this evening. Joan?
I move that we approve the draft FY 2023 to FY 2029 facilities capital plan as presented tonight.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, we'll bring this to a vote. Joan?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And myself, Lauren, is a yes. So that passes. Excellent. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our budget goals. So we've been discussing this year for the past couple of meetings. And last meeting, we decided to push our vote until this meeting. So Greg, if you could give us a little bit more background, that would be great.
Sure. So as we discussed last meeting, there was much work done aligning budget goals to Vision 2026. And as a result, I think we have kind of alignment with school improvement plans, the strategic plan, and as well as the school committee budget goals. The one area that we did remove from the budget goals was the implementing the tuition plan for tuition-free kindergarten program, which we successfully implemented, as you know. So that is the only change at this point in time. And just from my perspective, I do feel the budget goals are still well aligned, and I'll speak to the work that we're going to move forward with that fiscal year 23 budget process.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, as I was listening to Michelle's presentation tonight and then the elementary school leaders last month, I was really thinking about those main themes and goals about empowering learners and equity of opportunity for our learners, healthy and balanced, as well as having educator leadership and learning continue. And looking at our goals, I really see all of those highlighted. So because of that, I feel like with our school improvement plan, as well as our district plan, vision, what is it, Vision
26.
26. I forgot what year we're going to. I do see all of those reflected in our budget goals. We did work pretty hard last year creating this and going through it with a fine-tooth comb. I think that it's broad yet specific in some cases. I think that as drafted, as we have it, I would be in favor of the goals as written. I'm curious about other thoughts and comments from committee members.
I agree.
Okay, great. Anyone else? Yes, Joan.
Yes, if Superintendent Martineau and the other members feel that the embedded with this, it covers the major points in the elementary and the middle school improvement plan, then I'm fine with it. I just have one question on the next to the last bullet about maintain and support instructional technology. At the end of the first bullet, it has the word and then there's a second bullet that just says maintain assets. I just don't know if there is a verb tense that's missing. It says identify and implement coherent systems to provide meaningful data that inform decisions such as teaching and learning, and something seems to be missing. And then there is, because there's two separate bullets, but what is maintain assets? Does the maintain assets go with that and?
Yes,
Okay.
that is accurate. We have an extra bullet there.
Okay. I just wanted to know. I didn't know after that and if there was something that was missing. Okay. Thank you.
Good catch.
Yes, Joan, it looks like that is sort of the format for each of the bullets. So there's an and for each of the second to last bullets. Do you see that?
Oh, I see that now. Okay. Okay.
Almost just like a full sentence if you were to read it out, but the bullets make it a little bit easier to read.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. I missed that on the other ones. That one just caught my eye. Okay. Thank you.
I think it's because it's just the two words that it makes it look extra,
Yeah.
like incomplete thought, incomplete.
Yes.
Verb. Yeah.
The only recommendation I would suggest is maybe maintain technology assets, because assets is a very broad term. So I think that would make it flow better. And to your point, Joan, it would make a connection back to the bullet above.
Okay.
So we are looking to for a motion to approve these budget goals with the amendment of adding the word technology to the bullet point that says maintain assets. And I'm sorry, there is also stricken language about the free kindergarten as well. Would anyone like to make a motion? Thank you, Joan.
I move that we accept the Northborough Public Schools FY 2023 budget goals with the correction at the fifth bullet to the fifth solid bullet, second one in to add the word technology, to maintain technology assets, and then at the 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth bullet to eliminate the fourth sub bullet to implement the transition plan to a tuition-free kindergarten program. And
do we have a second?
Second, Erin.
All right, I am not going to try to repeat that.
Don't ask me to either.
Does anyone have any final discussion? All right, this is a roll call vote. Joan?
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Erin,
Yes.
and myself, Lauren, is a yes. Excellent. Thanks for everyone's work on those goals. And we're going to move to our budget calendar next.
In your packet is the updated budget calendar. The next meeting milestone is on November 9th, and meeting with the operational budget subcommittee, and Becky and I will be presenting the preliminary FY23 budget to the subcommittee.
Thank you. Kelly?
I noticed it's not here. I know Lauren and I talked, committee members and stuff. What are they called? Liaisons? Committee, what's the word that I'm looking for?
Subcommittee members?
Subcommittee members. So who should be going to that and who shouldn't be going to that? I know we've talked about loving to have everybody there, but then we've talked about violation of open meeting laws. And so do I need to go or not?
Well, so the subcommittee members should attend. And I don't have the list in front of me. Just who is representing the operational budget subcommittee? I believe it's.
So we had 3 members,
yeah.
And then in conversations with everyone separately, operational budget will be myself and Keith.
Yeah.
And
However,
our alternate.
We did post it as a webinar. So the subcommittee members will be promoted to panelists, but all committee members are more than welcome to listen in on the subcommittee meeting.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. Joan?
Thank you, Lauren. Greg, I have a question on the budget calendar. Seeing that the date is correct, 11/3/2021. It said school committee action on capital plan for submission to town. My question is, how does that get submitted to town? Do you have to present that before the financial boards or board of selectmen, or just with John?
No, meeting with John, and he has a format that requires us to kind of transfer our capital plan to a format for the town. So that will take place in the next week and a half. We have not had a chance to sit down with John and hope to in the next week or so to prepare that document.
So once you have that meeting with John, if there would be any changes, you would bring that back to us in the next regularly scheduled K-8 meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joan. Greg, did you have anything else you wanted to add about our preliminary budget discussion?
No, just a quick update. The directors and principals submitted their budgets on Friday, October 29th. And now the finance team and Becky are synthesizing all the data and really coming up with a preliminary budget. So we will present the preliminary again next week. And from that point, we'll get some direction from the committee members around what we need to do next in terms of moving forward with the process. So we are on schedule and looking forward to the operational budget subcommittee meeting.
Great, thank you. All right, so next it's time for our school committee member reports. So does anyone have anything they'd like to share, either from subcommittee, liaisons, anything else? Kelly.
Oh, I'm already unmuted. I'm looking for the mute. I'm like, where is the unmute button? So for NSPAC, they are having, and I mentioned it last month, they are having the sibling speaker, No Siblings Left Behind, and that is going to be on Tuesday, the 16th. And that's part of their speaker series. And then the only other thing that they are working on is they are hosting a transition planning workshop with the Algonquin staff. And that's going to be in January on the 25th. And that's going to be reviewing how transitions from middle school to high school, and also from graduation from high school, and planning the special needs of the community. So that's something that they're working on with the staff, and they're putting that together. And then there's the speaker series that they're working on too. And then there are other things they're working on, as they're just working on holiday socials, trying to get the people together and things like that. So, and that's all. And it's back. Nothing for solar this month. And the PTO is meeting on Friday.
Thank you, Kelly. I have some updates. So the Coalition for Equity met recently. I believe it was last week. And so our discussion began around partnerships between the schools and the community for learning opportunities, a potential lyceum, as well as the mascot renaming study group. So that's some topics of discussion that we've had recently. The policy subcommittee met with both Southborough as well as the region's policy subcommittees as well. And we did a first rough read of a new policy on audience sharing. So that will be coming forth in an upcoming meeting to do a read once we get that language worked out. The Town of Northborough's Committee for Diversity and Inclusion also has been meeting twice a month. And so we are starting to finalize our recommendations for the Board of Selectmen. So that is going to be coming, our recommendations will either be in December or January. And then finally, I know I spoke with all members over the last week or so. So I will be emailing out sort of an amended version of our subcommittee, so that 2 members serve as subcommittee members, and then the third person will be an alternate. So there isn't anything too earth-shattering, but I just wanted to let you know. And those are my updates. Anything else? All right. We're going to move on. There's no educational policy update at this time. There's no policy development or distribution at this time. So that brings us to personnel items. Greg?
So in your packet is the personnel report. And again, it's looking much more normal from the months of October and September. So things have quieted down from a hiring perspective for our HR department.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move on to communications, and we do have a letter from the MSBA. Greg, could you please give us some background about that letter?
Sure. So in the 11th hour last year, we submitted a letter of interest for the roofing project at Z School. So again, a letter, a statement of interest is basically the first step in the process of being considered to be invited into consideration. So, so in the 11th hour, we decided to not move forward with the roofing project at Z. However, because we submitted it to MSBA, they did consider it. And in their consideration, it didn't meet the threshold or the criteria that they set for consideration. So, and basically the criterion we did not meet was the age of the roof at Z School. So we were a little surprised that we received this letter, because we did call MSBA and ask them to remove our letter, a statement of interest. However, it must have been an oversight, and it was denied regardless.
Does that reflect poorly on us at all? Or no, it doesn't? It's
No,
not like they'll be
basically-
like, oh, they've asked for this, so it doesn't go into like this book. It's just like, I
No.
I don't want to be penalized for somebody because
No.
they forgot to, get it
No,
off the person. Okay. We're
these
not
sit in the
annoying
queue.
anybody.
So basically,
Okay.
the letter basically thanks us for our submission and encourages us to resubmit the statement of interest if we choose this upcoming submission cycle.
Okay.
but our priority is shifted from Z to Proctor. So we'll submit a statement of interest for Proctor.
We're getting practice at it. See.
All right, that brings us to the action on our minutes. So in your packets, you have the meeting minutes from our open meeting from October 6th, 2021. So we're looking for a motion for that. Anyone? All right, I will move. I'll move that we accept the open meeting minutes of October 6th, 2021.
I'll second Kelly Gannett. Sorry, I was trying to find my mute to motion. Sorry, Lauren.
No worries. All right, this will be a roll call vote. Joan?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And myself, Lauren, is a yes. So those pass, and I just want to shout out to, I think it was Pamela Roberts who wrote those notes. They were very thorough and detailed. So thank you so much, Pamela. All right, so now we're going to talk about future agenda items. Things that we'll be discussing in our December meeting is a recap of the MASC-MASS Joint Conference, which began today. And Kelly and I are virtual attendees, as is Greg. Our NESDEC enrollment projections, a preliminary budget presentation, a presentation about MCAS, as well as a discussion about the extended day program. Is there anything else that you'd like us to add for consideration for an upcoming agenda?
Which PTO did you say is gonna? Greg, did you say?
Has that been determined yet?
Yeah, the principals.
Or did you say December? Or?
The principals have they created a rotation. I don't have that in front of me right now, but whatever principal we're presenting,
it'll be that PTO
corresponding.
Okay.
PTO.
Just want to give Erin enough notice for her presentation.
I'm gonna look that up.
Joan?
And find out the night before. Oh, I'm presenting.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I don't have another agenda item, but I just wanted to know in number 4 on the MCAS presentation, could there be a segment on the student growth profile? I know that when first the MCAS test results were released, that was one thing that they released by district to district was the student growth profile. And if my memory serves me correctly, that is comparing the student to himself, not comparing the student to other districts. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's students who comparing the student to students who scored in the same scoring range. So,
and I think
we can add that to Stephanie and I talked, so we can add that to the presentation. Lauren did share with us kind of a framework she would like to see based on some of your questions, Joan. So that was really helpful.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Lauren.
You're welcome, Joan. Anything else you can envision in one of our upcoming agendas? If anything comes up, feel free to reach out to me and we can add it to an agenda. All right, so approval of bills and payrolls is done electronically. Kelly, thank you for your service. And next we are coming to audience sharing. I know we do have some audience members who have been sticking with us. So any audience members that would like to audience share, if you could just raise your hand virtually. And once you raise your hand virtually, we can promote you so that we can hear you speak. And it does look like we do have an audience member who'd like to share. So Ashita Urs. Hi, Ashita, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Hi, welcome. Ashita, before you begin, could you just state your name as well as your address?
My email address or
your home address where you live.
Oh, okay. I'm Ashita RS and my address is 26 Dunia Lane in Northborough.
Excellent, thank you. What would you like to share with us tonight?
So I wrote a letter to the school committee about the holiday Diwali, and how I thought it should be included in the observed holidays. So I'm gonna read out my letter.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Ashita Aress, a 8th grade student at Robert E. Malachy Middle School. I resided in Northborough for the past 7 years with my parents and younger brother. My family and I practice Hinduism, which is more than a religion, it's a way of life and a code of behavior. We believe that all beings in creation have a sense of faith, duty, and morality. These beliefs are omnipresent. We are connected to each other through our different cultures, and this should be highly valued. It is the need of the hour to accept, recognize, and celebrate our diversity. The town of Northborough observes numerous holidays: Christmas, Thanksgiving, Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and many more. In order for us to be a truly inclusive community, Diwali should be included in the list of holidays that are observed. Diwali is of utmost significance to the culture and religion of Hinduism. Also known as the Festival of Lights, Diwali celebrates the return of Rama from exile and his victory against the evil demon, Ravana. Diwali symbolizes the universal message that good always prevails over evil. Hindus celebrate Diwali every year in either October or November for a duration of 5 days. Celebrations include the lighting of diyas to represent the victory of good, family gatherings, festive meals, and fireworks and firecrackers. There is a large population of Hindus who reside in Worcester County. The school district of Westboro, a neighboring town of Northborough, observes Diwali as a holiday. Considering the two towns are situated exceptionally close to each other, our school district should also consider adopting an inclusive approach for diversity to flourish. We can create an inclusive and appreciative environment by adding Diwali to the list of no school days. This is a wonderful opportunity for Northborough to be one of the few towns that have declared Diwali a holiday. It is crucial for our community to be inclusive and accepting of others' beliefs. Awareness of others' culture can help one appreciate and value diversity. Hopefully, you guys can take this request into consideration so we can form a diverse community made up of unique individuals. And that was it.
Thank you so much, Ashita. We really love hearing from our students in our district. And I know that, Ashita, you had reached out to the school committee earlier this summer with your concerns and your thoughts, and we really appreciate it. And I know that we had also spoken about how at our next joint meeting, which is in December, we will be discussing our calendar. So this is great timing. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. And thanks for sticking with us all night, Ashita. It was a long meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to share for audience? I think we have a few more members in our audience. All right. Seeing that no one else would like to share, that means that we are done. So
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Awesome. Excellent. We have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? All right. We'll do a roll call vote. Joan?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Erin?
Yes.
And myself, Lauren, is a yes. So we are adjourned at 9:52 p.m.
And happy Diwali, because I know that's coming up this weekend too. I don't know if that's the appropriate thing to say, Ashita, but happy Diwali for you and all of our other fellow members who in the community who are celebrating that special holiday.
Yes, definitely. I believe it